Chapter 1977. Song Qing-shu still shook his head and said, "Forget it. I think it's good like this. I can talk to you from time to time. If I'm with Aku, I'm afraid I can only give up you." Chen Yuanyuan bit her lip and said, "Do you really want me to say it so clearly? At that time, if you really come to find me, could it be that I can still refuse you? As long as it's not too many times, don't let Aku know." Song Qing-shu was really confused. At first, he thought she meant it, but then she denied it. Now, listening to her tone, it seemed that she just couldn't put down her pride to say it so clearly. So she hinted that he could, since he had mastered the divine skill. Song Qing-shu's breathing and heartbeat could be said to be extremely calm, but now it was beating wildly, involuntarily. Some beautiful scenes involuntarily appeared in his mind, and he couldn't help but feel a little thirsty. Madame means Chen Yuanyin had turned around, and her expression couldn't be seen clearly. However, from her rapid breathing and heaving chest, it could be seen that she was also restless at this time. Song Qing-shu finally calmed down and said in a deep voice, "Madame's kindness, Song Mao really doesn't know how to repay it, but this kind of thing is too shocking. I can't agree." Hearing his words, Chen Yuanyuan couldn't help but be a little annoyed. I've already said it so shamelessly, and you're still making excuses. Are you still a man? Or do you despise us from the bottom of your heart? Madam and Aku are so beautiful. How can I despise you? Madam, don't be angry. Listen to me slowly." Song Qing-shu sighed and walked to the edge of the pool. He looked at the white clouds in the distant sky and slowly answered, "Now, I have mastered martial arts, and my cultivation has reached an unprecedented level. I have faintly touched the threshold of heaven's way. I have a kind of foresight for major crises in advance, which is what you call a whim. It's different from the whims of you ordinary people. If people of our cultivation base have a whims, there must be a reason for it. It's a very serious warning." Song Qing-shu paused and said, "Your proposal is indeed very tempting. No, it's very, very tempting. No man in this world would want to refuse it, and I'm no exception. But at the same time, I can faintly sense a trace of the laws of the heavenly Tao. If I really dare to accept such a suggestion, then there will absolutely be an extremely tragic consequence." Chen Yuanyuan was puzzled and said, "With your martial arts, you could be said to be invincible in the world. Moreover, you are a tyrant of a region. I really can't imagine what could hurt you." Song Qing-shu smiled, an inexplicable look in his eyes. "Maybe not in this world, but what about outside?" As he spoke, he pointed to the sky, and his expression became even more solemn. "I can faintly sense an indescribable existence. As long as I make a certain choice, it will completely erase me. At that time, it might even cause the destruction of this world." Chen Yuanyuan was confused. Is there really such a terrifying existence? Song Qing-shu sighed. "Your realm is too low. Naturally, you can't understand this feeling. Then why didn't that indescribable existence care about so many filthy things on the Qinhuai River in the past?" Chen Yuanyuan was a little annoyed. "At that time, I saw many sisters suffer with my own eyes, but I didn't see anyone send down divine punishment to erase those beasts. I can't figure that out either." Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "Maybe because they're not the main characters." Chen Yuanyuan's voice became cold. "First, young Master Song, if you are unwilling, you don't have to use such an absurd reason to prevaricate. It was my own wishful thinking. Just pretend that nothing happened today." After saying that, she ignored the other party's urging and left without looking back. Why does no one believe the truth? Song Qing-shu also let out a long sigh. "Do you think I don't want to? I also want to, but what can I do?" Remembering his promise, Song Qing-shu went to find Aku for breakfast. Chen Yuanyuan stood at the side with a dark expression the whole time. Later, when she heard that Ren Yingying had woken up, Chen Yuanyuan left with Aku to visit and thank Ren Yingying. Being ignored the whole time, Song Qing-shu was also depressed. But soon, something distracted his attention. It turned out that during the morning court meeting, Zhao Go had already announced that he was going to Wudong. On the surface, the reason was, of course, to worship the heavens. Because the Central Plains had fallen, Mount Tai was no longer under the control of the Southern Song dynasty. Of course, even if it was under the control of the Southern Song dynasty, with the various humiliations over the past few decades, Zhao Go did not have the face to follow the example of the Qin dynasty and the Han dynasty to worship the heavens at Mount Tai. One must know that after the alliance of Tan Yuan, his ancestor Song Zhenzong felt that it was a merit and risked the world's condemnation to go to Mount Tai to perform a pilgrimage. In the end, he was scolded. Not just the Song dynasty, even in the later dynasties, even if there were really talented people, no one ever went to Mount Tai to perform a pilgrimage. It was because of Song Zhenzong's pilgrimage that lowered the overall standard. The other rulers were ashamed to be associated with him. Although Zhao Go was not to the extent that he looked down on Song Zhenzong, he knew himself better than this ancestor. He did not even think about going to Mount Tai to perform a pilgrimage. Luckily, Mount Wudong had become more and more famous in the past 100 years. Plus, there was a half-celestial body in charge. Over the years, it attracted people like ducks. So this time, the worship to heaven naturally became Mount Wudong. The officials naturally did not believe Zhao Go's nonsense, that he was seeking fortune for the country. They all secretly guessed that his body was getting weaker, and he planned to find Zhang Sanfeng to find a way to prolong his life. Previously, he had summoned Zhang Sanfeng several times, but Zhang Sanfeng had avoided him. So this time, the emperor personally went to show his sincerity. Of course, in the eyes of an insider like Song Qingshu, he understood the real purpose of Zhao Go's trip. He found Ren Yingying and told her about what happened during this period of time, as well as the information he had obtained. Ren Yingying could not help but look worried. Even people like Huang Chong and the drunken monk feel that they have no confidence in this trip and need to pull you into it. It looks like this trip is very dangerous. You better not take the risk. Don't worry. Don't you know my martial arts? Plus, even if the situation is really bad, with my Qin Gong, who in this world can stop me? Song Qingshu said with a smile. Ren Yingying thought that he was right and did not try to persuade him anymore. Chun Yuanyuan, who was at the side, finally knew how much risk he had taken to save Ah Ko. She could not help but look apologetic. It's all because of me and Ah Ko that young master has to take the risk. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. Don't take it to heart, madam. I had originally wanted to participate, and this is a good opportunity. Chun Yuanyuan was startled. She had experienced too many storms and seen too many people in her life. No matter who it was, in order to get on her good side, they would boast about everything they had done. She was not like Song Qingshu, who had clearly done 10 things, but was not willing to take any credit. She had even been angry with him just now. She had really misunderstood him. Young master is really a gentleman. Song Qingshu was speechless. He could not help but smile at Ren Yingying. I didn't think that there would still be people who would think that I am a gentleman. Ren Yingying thought about how he had played dirty tricks on her last night, and could not help but blush. Sister Yuanyuan, he is a bad person. How is he a gentleman? Chun Yuanyuan shook her head. Although Prince Song's behavior is a little unruly, he is different from those sanctimonious men. In this world, there is no man who is more gentleman than him. It was not convenient for her to tell Ren Yingying what had just happened, so she could only vaguely sigh. After these twists and turns, Chun Yuanyuan began to admire Song Qingshu more and more. Looking at Ah Ko beside her, she became even more determined in her heart. At this time, a maid suddenly came to report that the Prime Minister's residence had sent an invitation asking Song Qingshu to come to the residence for a chat that night. Chapter 1978. Looking at the gilded invitation in his hand, Song Qingshu was a little surprised. It's from Jia Sherdao. Ren Yingying frowned and said, How did he know that you came back secretly? Song Qingshu threw the invitation on the table and said with a smile, I made such a big noise in the palace last night. It's hard to hide it from someone who wants to, not to mention that Jia Sherdao's intelligence network is so powerful. So should I go or not? Ren Yingying was a little worried. You've always been good friends with Han Yuezhou, and he knows that. I'm afraid it's a Hongmin banquet this time. Of course I'm going. Why not? Song Qingshu said meaningfully. I'm going to see what he's up to. Besides, Jia Sherdao is not Xiang Yu, and I'm not Liu Bang at the Hongmen banquet. In the evening, the Jia residence's horse carriage came to pick up Song Qing-shu and bring him to the residence. Song Qing-shu was skilled and bold. After he instructed Ren Yingying and the other women with a few words, he calmly got into the horse carriage. However, as soon as he got into the carriage, he smelled a strong rose fragrance. When he saw the situation in the carriage, he couldn't help but be stunned. It turned out that a young woman in splendid clothes was already sitting in the carriage. She was covered in colorful embroidery, like a fairy. She had a pair of phoenix eyes, 2 curved eyebrows, a slim figure, and a coquettish body. She was really beautiful, and her smile could be smelled before it even opened. I'm Wang Shifeng. Nice to meet you, Prince Qi. The young woman stood up and bowed to him. When she spoke, she smiled sweetly, which instantly increased the intimacy between them. Standing at the door, Song Qing-shu touched his nose and said, "It's second young mistress. It seems that I accidentally got into the wrong carriage." He had entered the Jia's mansion as Jia Baoyu, so he naturally recognized the young woman in front of him. Seeing that he recognized her, Wang Shifeng smiled sweetly and made an inviting gesture. "Of course you got into the right carriage, Prince Qi. Please come in." Song Qing-shu looked at her with a faint smile and said, "I wonder if you're here on behalf of the Jia family or the Wang family?" All this time, he had been thinking about a problem. Although the 4 great clans had a close relationship with each other, they were not the same clan after all. They must have their own plans. He wondered if there was a chance to drive a wedge between these clans so that he could reap the benefits. Covering her mouth, Wang Shifeng smiled and said, "Since Prince Qi addresses me as second young mistress, I am naturally representing the Jia family. This time, I have specially come to invite Prince Qi to my residence for the banquet." "Oh," Song Qing-shu raised his eyebrows. "Prime Minister Jia actually sent Madam to pick me up. This is really surprising." Wang Shifeng invited him to sit down. The carriage had already been padded with a Persian carpet, and the surroundings were also covered with soft fur mats, so the vibration of the entire carriage was minimized. There was a small table in the middle of the carriage. Wang Shifeng poured him a cup of tea and replied, "Young master is the Prime Minister's honored guest. Naturally, he had to send someone to receive you to show his sincerity. Originally, he had planned to send my humble husband, but something happened to my humble husband, so I took his place." "I see." Of course, Song Qing-shu did not believe her nonsense. His eyes fell on the snow-white wrist that was inadvertently exposed when she served the tea. He wondered what Jia Sherdao, that old fox, was up to. Did he hear of his reputation and plan to use his beauty against him? But it was a bit expensive to send his nephew's wife. "May I know who else is here today?" Song Qing-shu took the opportunity to ask. Wang Shifeng replied, "Today, Prince Qi is the only honored guest. The others are all family members." "Oh." Song Qing-shu was a bit surprised. For a moment, he did not know why Jia Sherdao had invited him alone. Along the way, Wang Shifeng quietly led the conversation. She did not touch on any sensitive information, but just chatted casually about everything. She did not seem abrupt, nor did she seem overly enthusiastic. Unknowingly, she had drawn the 2 of them closer. Song Qing-shu had to admit that Wang Shifeng was as smooth as she was rumored to be. She was good at building good diplomatic relationships. Although he could see through her little tricks, she was indeed very beautiful, and it was hard to dislike her. "I wonder if there's a person named Jia Rui in the Jia family." Looking at the beautiful young woman in front of him, Song Qing-shu thought of a scene he had read in the novel Dream of the Red Chamber. When Jia Rui, a collateral member of the Jia family, saw Wang Shifeng for the first time, he was overwhelmed by her beauty and wanted to seduce this beautiful sister-in-law many times. However, Wang Shifeng was too powerful. On the one hand, she pretended to be courteous with him, but on the other hand, she schemed to punish him several times, causing him to lose his life. This woman is really cruel. Looking at Wang Shifeng's beautiful cheeks, Song Qing-shu secretly felt a chill in his heart. He secretly reminded himself not to be careless. After a short while, the carriage stopped. Wang Shifeng smiled and said, Prince Qi, we are here. Song Qingshu nodded his head. After exiting the carriage, he casually lifted the curtain and said, Madam, please. Wang Shifeng was startled. Her gaze fell on the curtain, and she became somewhat absent-minded. However, she quickly recovered her smile and said, Prince Qi is really making this concubine suffer. Song Qingshu did not think much of it. In his previous life, most men knew how to do such things. He replied, It is nothing. The smile on Wang Shifeng's face became even wider. No wonder so many madams and young ladies in the world regard young master as their dream lover. Today, I finally know why. Song Qingshu looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. He looked at her and asked, Does this include madam? Along the way, he had been hinted at by her in various ways. Finally, he found an opportunity to counterattack. Wang Shifeng had always been generous and decent, but his words made her heart skip a beat. She blushed and said, Prince Qi, you must be joking. At this time, the two had already entered the gate of the Jia's mansion. There were servants of the Jia's mansion everywhere, so Song Qingshu could not continue to tease her. The two kept walking inside. After a short while, Jia Sherdao personally led a group of people to welcome them. He said with a smile, Prince Qi, your presence really brings light to my humble dwelling. Prime Minister Jia, you are too kind. Although he knew that Jia Sherdao was hiding a dagger in his smile, Song Qingshu had to admit that he enjoyed Jia Sherdao's attitude. No wonder Jia Sherdao could do so much, and all his subordinates were so loyal to him. His ability to treat people and things was far better than Song Qingshu's. Jia Sherdao smiled and made a gesture of invitation. He said, Prince Qi, please. Prime Minister Jia, please. Song Qingshu entered the hall with him and suddenly found a middle-aged woman in luxurious clothes sitting in the hall. Although she was old, she was dignified. It could be seen that she must have been an outstanding beauty when she was young. At this time, Jia Sherdao said, Prince Qi, let me introduce you. This is my sister, who has now been appointed as the imperial concubine by the emperor in the palace. Greetings, imperial concubine. Song Qingshu bowed. In fact, when he had entered the palace pretending to be Jia Baoyu, he had already met Jia Sherdao once. However, this relationship was naturally difficult to say, so he could only pretend that it was the first time they had met. I have long heard of your name, Prince Qi. Today, I finally get to meet you. You are indeed as handsome and dignified as the rumors say, Jia Sherdao said with a smile. In fact, in the palace before, when Xiao Long made a scene in the palace, they had also met face to face, but it was the first time that they had such a close conversation like this. You are graceful and dignified. You really have the demeanor of a mother. Song Qingshu also knew how to say such beautiful words. He knew that she cared most about the position of empress, so he naturally catered to her. As expected, Jia Sherdao quickly smiled, and the gloominess between her eyebrows completely disappeared. Jia Sherdao took the opportunity to say, This time, I actually invited Prince Qi here for one thing. Chapter 1979. Seeing Jia Fei here, Song Qingshu had already guessed what was going on, but he still pretended to be ignorant and said, You're too kind, Prime Minister Jia. Please tell me what you want. Jia Sherdao said, My sister came back to visit her family, so I invited Prince Qi to my house to talk and solve the misunderstanding between the two of you. Song Qingshu smiled and said, How could there be any misunderstanding between me and the imperial concubine? Jia Sherdao stroked his beard and said with approval in his eyes, I misspoke. There is no misunderstanding between you two. Jia Fei also said, Sister Wu and I used to fight in the palace, but I didn't know that Prince Qi was Sister Wu's friend, so I always offended you. I hope Prince Qi won't take it to heart. You're too kind, imperial concubine. Neither I nor Sister Wu took it to heart. Song Qingshu thought to himself, Jia Sherdao is really well informed. He got the news as soon as I rescued Akko last night. I wonder if he knows about the deal I made with Huang Chong? The fight in the palace was so big that it couldn't be hidden from people who wanted to know. However, Only the three of them knew about the deal, so no one would tell others. So, Song Qingshu guessed that Jia Sherdao didn't know about it. Song Qingshu suddenly thought of another thing. Huang Chang's existence in the palace wasn't a secret, but he didn't know if Jia Sherdao and King Yi knew about the drinking monk. However, no matter whether he knew or not, he was able to take Aku away from Huang Chang's hand safely. His strength was enough to impress Jia Sherdao and her brother. That must be why they wanted to recruit him. Since Prince Qi said so, I guess the past is the past. Jia Sherdao couldn't help but sigh. He said with a double meaning, Prince Qi, I really admire you and envy you. I don't know how you did it. Song Qingshu knew that he was talking about the matter of him taking the imperial consort out of the palace and the fact that the imperial palace did not pursue the matter. Hearing this, he smiled and said, Prime Minister Jia, you are flattering me. Prime Minister Jia's ability to govern the country, to be below one and above tens of thousands of people, is truly admirable. Jia Sherdao laughed and said, How could I compare to the king of Qi? Drunk, lying on a beautiful woman's lap, and sober, holding a killing sword. How cool. Concubine Wu being taken out of the palace was a serious matter, and the attitude of the palace was ambiguous. Even though Jia Sherdao knew about it, he didn't dare to say it out loud. He didn't want to complicate matters at such a critical moment. Thus, the two sides tacitly did not expose this matter. Instead, they started to flatter each other. After a while, Jia Fei said, Shi Xian, don't leave the guests here. The banquet is ready. Jia Sherdao finally came back to his senses. Yes. King of Qi, please. Then he led Song Qingshu to a seat, pointed to the people on the side, and said, King of Qi, today is a family banquet, and they are all brothers and nephews. Just treat it as if you are at home. Family banquet? Song Qingshu smiled faintly. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for me to be here. Why not? I happen to have something I want to ask of you, King of Qi. Jia Sherdao pulled Song Qingshu to sit down. Oh, Song Qingshu was curious about what Jia Sherdao was up to. Jia Sherdao didn't rush to say what he wanted. Instead, he pointed to a group of people standing on the side and said, This is Jiao Yin, the son of my eldest brother's family. This is Jia Rong, the grandson of my cousin Marquis Ning's family. This is my daughter Tanshun, the daughter of my eldest brother's family. This is Ying Chun, the daughter of Marquis Ning's family. Song Qingshu glanced at the people in front of him. In fact, he had seen these people when he entered the Jia mansion as Jia Baoyu, so he could vaguely remember their names. However, he didn't understand why Jia Sherdao was introducing a bunch of people to him. After the introductions, Jia Sherdao said what he wanted to say. These people grew up in an environment of luxury, and now they are all very weak. I originally wanted to hire some martial arts masters to train them, but they're all used to being pampered and can't bear hardship. Also, because of their identities, those martial arts masters wouldn't dare to discipline them strictly. By chance, they had heard of the king of Qi's deeds. Each and every one of them was filled with admiration, one after another begging me to take you as my master. I believed that only the king of Qi would be able to intimidate these people. As a result, I thickened my old face to beg the king of Qi. Seeing his eagerness, Song Qingshu fell into deep thought. Jia Sherdao had a lot of masters under his command, so how could he lack martial arts masters? These old foxes in the court, of course, said everything they did after careful consideration. On the surface, Jia Sherdao was asking him to be the master of his children, but in fact, he was taking the opportunity to offer an olive branch to draw him to his side. From the perspective of others, although he was close to Han Xingzhou, there was no fundamental conflict of interest between him and Jia Sherdao, so it was reasonable that Jia Sherdao wanted to draw him to his side. However, Song Qingshu knew that his ambition was to conquer the world, and Jia Sherdao's huge and terrifying plan meant that the two of them couldn't be together. It's mainly because my time is limited and I'm often away from Linen. It's inevitable that I'll delay the studies of these young masters and young ladies. Song Qingshu answered ambiguously. At this time, Jia Fei said with a smile. With King Qi's ability, these little brats can benefit so much with just a few words. I'm afraid that it's more than 10 years of teaching by ordinary martial arts masters. Song Qingshu laughed and said, "You're exaggerating. You're exaggerating." Jia Sherdao also took the opportunity to say, "Of course I know that King Qi is very busy, and I don't dare to expect to teach them often. 1 or 2 words of advice from time to time is enough for them to learn for a long time. If that's the case, then I have no choice but to accept it." His opponent was very interested in him, so there was no need for Song Qingshu to publicly reject him. He could also take the opportunity to infiltrate the Jia's mansion and see if he could find any useful information. The only thing he had to worry about was how others would understand his attitude, such as the other people in the court, such as Zhao Guo. However, he had already agreed to Huang Chang's proposal, so they should know what was going on. While he was thinking, Jia Sherdao had already summoned his children and nephews. "Come and greet your master." Yes. A group of young masters and young ladies came over and bowed. "Greetings, master." Song Qingshu could see in the eyes of Jiao Yin, Jia Rong, and the others that they were not interested in learning martial arts, and they had to follow Jia Sherdao's orders to become his disciple. On the contrary, the eyes of Yingchun, Shichuan, and Tanshun were full of expectation and enthusiasm. A group of carefree girls. Although the girls were pretty, they were still a long way from being stunning. Song Qingshu wouldn't have any ideas about Jia Sherdao's daughters. However, being surrounded by a group of girls who admired him, feeling their youthful energy, and smelling their youthful fragrance, it felt pretty good. Jia Sherdao sighed and said, "It's a pity that I don't know where my poor son is." "Your son?" Of course, Song Qingshu knew about Jia Baoyu's situation, but he couldn't tell him. "Yeah, my son disappeared for no reason a while ago. I sent a lot of people to look for him, but it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. They didn't find any news at all," Jia Sherdao said as he looked at Song Qingshu strangely. "Does King Qi know where my son is?" Chapter 1980. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, but he remained calm. "Oh, I didn't know about that. Is this guy suspecting me?" Jia Sherdao stared at him for a long time before he sighed. "It's normal that Prince Qi doesn't know about it. We can only find out that my son's disappearance might have something to do with Mongolia. Prince Qi has always been close to the Ruyang mansion. I wonder if you can help me ask around when we meet." Song Qingshu nodded. "No problem. I have some influence in Jianghu. I can ask them to help you." At the same time, he complained to himself, "What the hell? Jia Baoyu must have drunk Ming Po's soup and been reincarnated. Where can I find him?" Jia Sherdao asked me to be the master of the Jia Mansion's people, and he wants me to help him find Jia Baoyu's whereabouts. He doesn't give me any benefits. Does he think I'm a good Samaritan? At this time, Jia Sherdao called out, "What are you waiting for? Come and propose a toast to your master." Yes, the young masters and ladies mentioned before all came to propose a toast. To Song Qingshu's surprise, they didn't come to propose a toast alone. Most of them came in groups of families. For example, Zhao Yin came with his wife, Wang Shifeng, which made it difficult for him to refuse. Wang Shifeng smiled faintly and took the wine cup from Song Qingshu's fair wrist. A line popped up in Song Qingshu's mind for no reason. "If uncle has the heart, drink this cup of wine for me." Pooh, pooh, pooh. It's not auspicious. Song Qingshu secretly spat a few times, thinking, he is Pan Jinlian, and I don't want to be Shiman Qing. When Zhao Rong came over to propose a toast and saw his pale face, Song Qingshu's expression couldn't help but be a little strange. This was because he thought of the time when he went to the Jia residence to look for the missing Ying. He accidentally discovered that this fellow was going to be rude to Li Wan, who lived in the Zhu residence. In the end, when he saved her, he also crippled his kidney meridian, causing him to no longer be able to have sex, so as to prevent him from causing any more dirty things. Back then, in order to deal with the aftermath, Song Qingshu had purposely used the soul transfer technique to brainwash him. Now, Jiarong really did not recognize him as the person from that night. After drinking his toast, Song Qingshu looked to his side in disappointment. He did not see Qin Kaching's figure, but even though he was disappointed, he was too embarrassed to ask about the person in the room in front of so many people. Following that, a few young ladies of the Jiao residence came over to propose a toast. Naturally, the wine made by the young ladies was much sweeter than the previous wine. The people of the Jiao residence seemed to be intentionally trying to get him drunk, taking turns to do it. Song Qingshu wanted to see what Jia Shidao wanted to do, so he didn't refuse. When they were almost drunk, Song Qingshu pretended to be drunk. Jia Shidao glanced at him and said, "King Qi is drunk. Come on, help King Qi to the guest room to rest. Make some soup to sober him up. Take him back to the King Qi's mansion when he's sober up." Soon, a maidservant came to help Song Qingshu up and brought him to a side room to serve him to sleep. What on earth is this guy planning to do? After the maidservant left, Song Qingshu sat up on the bed, feeling a little confused. If he's trying to win me over, it would have been enough to make those young masters and young ladies worship me as their teacher. Why did he ask me to stay in the Jiao residence? At this time, in the study of the Jiao residence, Jia Shidao's confidant, Liao Yingzhong, looked at his master in front of him with confusion. Isn't this a little inappropriate? The young ladies are inexperienced and in love. Song Qingshu is a famous playboy. Isn't it inviting a wolf into the house by letting him be the instructor? If the young ladies fall for him by accident, what will happen then? Jia Shidao laughed and said, "If that happens, I'll wake up laughing even in my dreams. She's only a daughter, and she's able to win over the great King Qi. Why not?" Liao Yingzhong frowned and said, "But he has many lovers. Why would he fall for you just because of the young ladies?" Jia Shidao looked at the night outside the window and said calmly, "Don't worry. I didn't expect to win him over so easily. If I could win him over with women, I would have other ways." Meanwhile, Song Qingshu was thinking about Jia Shidao's intentions in the room. Suddenly, he heard footsteps outside the door. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly lay back down on the bed. The person was obviously a little hesitant. She stood at the door for a long time without knocking or speaking. She even seemed to want to go back several times. Song Qingshu felt strange. The person's steps were soft, but her breathing was irregular. Obviously, she didn't know martial arts. She was most likely a woman. After a long time, the person seemed to have finally made up her mind. She pushed the door open and walked slowly to the bed. Although she didn't open her eyes, Song Qingshu could still feel that the person was standing in front of the bed, quietly looking at him. He was very curious about the person's identity. He wanted to open his eyes to see, but he was afraid of being exposed too early. Song Qingshu could only guess in his mind. Although she is a woman, she doesn't smell like perfume. There is only a faint fragrance. Who is she? While he was hesitating, he suddenly heard a soft female voice, which sounded a little sad. "Don't pretend. With your martial arts skills, you won't be drunk so easily." Song Qingshu was stunned. He opened his eyes and looked at the young woman in plain clothes. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. "I didn't expect it to be Madam." The woman in front of him was elegant and dignified. It was Li Wan, the young lady of the Rongwa mansion. Because her husband died early, she usually lived alone at home and didn't go out. She didn't even see men, let alone other men's dormitories. Who else did you think it was? Li Wan rolled her eyes at him, and there was a touch of charm in her eyes. Although it disappeared in a flash, Song Qingshu still saw it. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. In this world, the most difficult thing to resist was not the deliberate seduction of those coquettish women, but the trace of charm inadvertently revealed by chastity. Why is Madam looking for me? Although there were some ripples in his heart, Song Qingshu didn't think that Li Wan, who had always been dignified, would have any ulterior motives. Li Wan sighed. "Isn't it because I want to ask you about my sister who disappeared when she was young? At that time, you clearly said that you would tell us after the incident. In the end, we couldn't even find your shadow." Song Qingshu was also a little embarrassed. Back then, in order to get her father, the chancellor of the directorate, Li Shouzhong, to mobilize public opinion in Jianshan Academy and redress Yu Fei's case, he had indeed made such a promise. In the end, He had been too busy running around and had forgotten about this matter. And the last time I saw you in the Jiao residence, you also said that you would tell me after you finish your matter. In the end, I waited for a whole night, but you didn't come back. When Li Wan said this, her fair cheeks blushed. Obviously, this kind of thing was difficult for her, who had always scrupulously abided by the virtue of a woman. Song Qingshu was stunned. He finally remembered what she said. At that time, he knocked out Jia Rong in Li Wan's room. He originally said that he would tell her after he finished his matter, but in the end, he was in a hurry to save Ren Yingying, so he couldn't come back in time. I broke my promise. I will tell you now, your sister. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Li Wan was shocked and anxiously walked around, looking for a place to hide. Song Qingshu was amused. What are you afraid of? Li Wan's face turned red. I am a person who lives alone, and I came to your room in the middle of the night. This residence is full of gossipers. If this gets out, I don't want to live anymore. Please remember the domain name of this book. Come, Wonderful Book House mobile version. Come. Chapter 1981. Although he didn't agree with it, the rules of the world were like this. Song Qingshu couldn't change the view of the world by himself. Seeing Li Wan was about to cry, he pointed to the screen in the distance and said, "Why don't you hide behind that?" Li Wan looked at him gratefully, then lifted her skirt and quickly hid behind the screen. Almost at the same time, a beautiful figure pushed open the door and walked in. Hey, if I knew that the door wasn't locked, I wouldn't have knocked for so long. The voice was soft and soft. Song Qingshu's heart shook, and he couldn't help but look towards the source of the voice. He saw a woman dressed as a young madam standing at the door. She was as beautiful as Li Qingluo, as graceful as Shun Bijuan, and her small waist made people want to hug her tenderly. Everyone says that you are drunk, but I see that His Highness's gaze is like a god right now. It doesn't look like he is drunk at all, the young woman said softly. Li Wan, who was behind the screen, was startled. She had already recognized the voice of the newcomer. She thought to herself, didn't she say that she was not feeling well, so she didn't attend the banquet tonight? Why did she suddenly appear here? Song Qingshu laughed. Nonsense, when I saw young madam, my gaze clearly became intoxicated. This delicate and graceful woman in front of him was naturally Ningua Fu's Rong young madam, Qin Keqing. Qin Keqing's jade cheeks turned slightly red. This concubine is the young madam of Ningua Manor. I hope that your highness can conduct yourself with dignity. Li Wan, who was behind the screen, secretly spat. She thought that since she knew that she was the young madam of Ningua Fu, why did she come to a man's room in the middle of the night? The Rong and Ning mansions were right next to each other. She had heard many rumors about this beautiful young madam in the mansion. She, who had always been clean, naturally didn't like this beautiful young Madame Rong. However, she suddenly remembered that she had also come to a man's room in the middle of the night. It seemed that she was in no position to despise the other party. Thinking of this, Li Wan couldn't help but frown and was in a trance for a moment. Song Qingshu was also a little confused. Why is Madame acting so distant today? Qin Keqing glared at him fiercely. You still have the nerve to say that? She sat down on a small stool beside the table and pressed down on the hem of her skirt. Her every movement was elegant and prideful. You hid it from me so well. Qin Keqing bit her red lips, a pair of naturally affectionate eyes carefully examining the other's face. If I hadn't accidentally seen your appearance today, I wouldn't have known that you are that renowned King Qi. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. It's really important. I didn't tell Madame before because I had no other choice. He became acquainted with Qin Keqing when Jia Shidao fought for the military power in Sichuan. Before the competition in front of the palace, he used Qin Keqing to use up Wu Tianda's energy. In the end, it was seen through by Han Xingzhou, and he had Song Qingshu pretend to be Wu Tianda to attend the banquet. As a result, the two of them had a relationship. Later, when Song Qingshu broke into the Jiao mansion to save Ren Yingying, and when Liao spied on the Song Kingdom's diplomatic mission, the two of them met a few more times. However, although Qin Keqing knew Song Qingshu's true appearance, she didn't know his true identity. Song Qing-shu was worried that Jia Sherdao would find out, so he deliberately didn't say anything. Qin Keqing suddenly said with a strange expression, "Tonight, everyone in the Jia residence treats you as a distinguished guest, but if they knew what you did to the people of the Jia residence, I wonder if they would still treat you so warmly." Li Wan, who was behind the screen, was shocked. She wondered if she knew that her husband was injured by Song Qing-shu. Back then, Jia Rong broke into her bedroom at night. Fortunately, Song Qing-shu saved her and saved her chastity. Therefore, although she was a member of the Jia mansion, she subconsciously stood on Song Qing-shu's side. Song Qing-shu knew that Qin Keqing was talking about Jia Zhen. Back then, when he broke into the Jia mansion at night and saved Luo Bing kicked Jia Zhen, who had intended to touch her, until she was disabled. "Has Madame always hated me?" Song Qing-shu sighed. A hint of confusion flashed in Qin Keqing's eyes. She shook her head lightly. "I don't know either. Logically speaking, I should hate you for hurting that person. But because that person was injured, I was able to break free from that absurd relationship. Now, I can sleep more comfortably every day. I don't have nightmares like before." Li Wan, who was behind the screen, was confused. What were they talking about? From their tone, they seemed to be very familiar with each other. Could it be that the two of them? Li Wan immediately shook her head. After all, the two of them had no relationship at all. She really couldn't imagine what they had. Song Qing-shu understood what Qin Keqing meant. Although there was a certain amount of love between her and Jia Zhen was her father-in-law after all. This relationship was not tolerated by the secular world. As a result, she had to bear enormous psychological pressure. Later on, Jia Zhen was disabled by Luo Bing. As a result, he didn't have the face to pester her. Qin Keqing also took this opportunity to be free. However, when he thought about how her husband, Jia Rong, was crippled by him, Song Qing-shu felt a little awkward. Fortunately, they were husband and wife in name, so he didn't have to worry about her being too sad. "May I know why young madam is here this time?" Seeing the worried expression on the beautiful woman's face, Song Qing-shu decided to change the topic. Qin Keqing's red lips opened slightly, but her face suddenly turned red. She couldn't continue. Song Qing-shu was confused. Could it be that she had some other reason for coming this time? Just as Qin Keqing was stuttering, there was suddenly movement outside the door. "Greetings to second young madam. No need to be so polite. Give me your hangover soup." Coincidentally, the Prime Minister sent me over to take a look at His Highness's situation. A burst of laughter rang out. Song Qing-shu thought that, as expected of someone who laughs before speaking, this Wang Shifeng was really unique. Qin Keqing's expression changed slightly, and she immediately stood up from the stool. "This loud mouth. I don't want her to see me here." There were many gossipers in the Rong and Ning residences. Wang Shifeng had always been shrewd and was famous for not keeping a lid on her mouth. If she were to see me, it was impossible to guarantee that the people of the two residences would know about tonight's matter by daybreak. After Qin Keqing finished speaking, she didn't wait for Song Qing-shu's reaction and quickly hid behind the large screen. "Hey!" Song Qing-shu wanted to call out to her, but it was already too late. A low cry came from behind the screen. Qin Keqing frantically rushed behind the screen and suddenly realized that there was someone hiding there. She was so shocked that she almost cried out. Li Wan also didn't expect that she would suddenly barge in. Caught off guard, she jumped in fright. Luckily, she knew that Wang Shifeng was about to come in, so she covered her mouth in the nick of time. Qin Keqing also recognized the other person's identity at this time. Her expression instantly became extremely strange as she asked with her eyes, "Why are you here as well? Aren't you here as well?" Li Wan bit her lips and turned her face away. Qin Keqing's gaze became more and more playful. Li Wan couldn't stand her teasing gaze and directly shrunk behind the screen, increasing the distance between them. Please remember this book's domain name. Com. Wonderful Book House mobile version. Com. Chapter 1982. At this moment, Wang Shifeng had already walked in, a fragrant wind carrying a bowl of hangover soup. Seeing Song Qing-shu seated on the bed, she was momentarily startled before smiling. So the Prince of Qi has already woken up. Come, drink a bowl of soup to sober up. Song Qingshu waved his hand and said, "Thank you for your kindness, madam, but I feel much better after resting for a while. I don't need to drink soup anymore." God knew if Jia Sherdao had added anything to the soup. Although he was now immune to all poisons, he didn't need to take that risk. Wang Shifeng didn't insist. She smiled and said, "I didn't expect King Qi to become my husband's master. When we meet in the future, should I call him King Qi or Master?" Song Qingshu replied, "The title of Master is too strong. Besides, I'm teaching Zhao Yin and the others. It has nothing to do with Madam. We can call each other whatever you want." "That won't do," Wang Shifeng said with a smile. "As the saying goes, a married woman follows her husband. Since King Qi is my husband's master, he is naturally my master. But master, it sounds too old to call King Qi. How about calling him sir?" "Madam, you don't have to be so polite. We all know that it's just a saying. I don't have much time to teach the young masters and young ladies," Song Qingshu replied. "That won't do. We still have to be polite. Sir, please accept a bow from me." As Wang Shifeng spoke, she respectfully knelt on the ground to pay her respects. Song Qingshu jumped in fright and hastily reached out to help her up. All he could touch was the incomparably smooth skin on her arm. Both of them were startled. Wang Shifeng's gaze fell on his hand, and a smile appeared at the corner of her lips. Her eyes were full of charm. "Sir, how is this disciple's aptitude?" The two women behind the screen looked at each other and saw the doubt in each other's eyes. Usually, although Wang Shifeng was good at singing and dancing, they had never heard of any rumors of her not being a woman. Why did it seem like she was deliberately seducing people today? Even Song Qingshu had to admit that although Wang Shifeng was often associated with snobbery, scheming, shrewdness, and so on, for a woman's point of view, she was really a top-notch woman. She was voluptuous and graceful, and had a kind of faintly discernible charm. She was indeed a woman from the Wang family. Of the four great clans, the Jia, Shi, Wang, and Shui clans, the Wang clan had the most daughters. The other great clans basically all married women from the Wang clan. Song Qingshu had met a few of them before. Naturally, there was no need to mention Wang Yuyan. Liu Yu's second wife was also a young miss of the Wang clan. There was also Wang Shifeng. All of them were outstanding beauties. "Son, I wonder what kind of aptitude Madam is referring to." Feeling all of Wang Shifeng's teasing, Song Qingshu was not a virgin who had never been through a storm. Naturally, he would not be led by the nose by her. Wang Shifeng pursed her lips and smiled. "Of course it's the aptitude of the body." Song Qingshu moved closer to her ear and whispered, "If it's aptitude for martial arts, it can only be said to be extremely mediocre. But if it's from a woman's point of view, Madam's aptitude is truly top-notch." Even though Wang Shifeng had always been bold and bold, now that a man's breath was so close to her neck, she found it difficult to control herself. She subconsciously shifted back and said with some panic, "It seems that I have no fate to learn teachers' profound martial arts." Song Qingshu stopped before going too far and stood up straight. "But when Madam returns, you must have second young master learn from me." "Why?" Seeing that he seemed to be implying something, Wang Shifeng asked curiously. "During the banquet, I saw that second young master Lian's footsteps were weak and his eyes were dark. He had already lost a lot of vitality." Song Qingshu paused, then continued in a low voice. "As I said earlier, Madam's body is special. Ordinary men cannot withstand more than a few blows from Madam. Second young master Lian is no exception." "Then I'll have to trouble you, sir." Wang Shifeng's cheeks were red. She couldn't be clearer about what happened between them. She originally thought that it was because of her husband's womanizing. She didn't expect the problem to be with her. But when she thought about how she was discussing such a private topic with a strange man, she felt a little uncomfortable. She quickly changed the topic and said, "By the way, I heard that the Prime Minister asked you to help find second young Master Bao. Do you have any clues?" Seeing that she was deliberately changing the topic, Song Qingshu secretly sneered, thinking that the main topic had finally come. On the one hand, She wanted to use her beauty to obtain information, but on the other hand, she didn't want to spend money. This second young mistress was really shrewd. The Prime Minister used so many resources, but still couldn't find him. How could I have any clues in such a short time? Song Qing-shu answered as he thought about whether Wang Shifeng came at Jia Shidao's request or on her own. If it was the former, it would be understandable, but if it was the latter, things would be interesting. Why would she care so much about Jia Baoyu's whereabouts? Mr. must be joking. Leaving aside the fact that Mr. is a Wang Ye who is above tens of thousands of people, the Golden Snake camp under your command is even more capable and talented. Perhaps they are even more useful than Prime Minister's official power, Wang Shifeng said. As she spoke, she revealed a worried expression. My poor second Uncle Bao. Everyone has been holding him in their mouths ever since he was young. Now that he's gone missing for so long, I wonder how much suffering he's going through. Song Qing-shu looked at her carefully and said playfully, Madam, as far as I know, the Prime Minister had 2 sons. The eldest son died young. As he spoke, he subconsciously looked in the direction of the screen. Li Wan, who was behind him, heard this and looked gloomy. After a pause, he continued, Now that the second son is missing, if he doesn't believe it, then everything in the Rongwa mansion will be inherited by second Master Lian. Madam, shouldn't you pray that second Master Bao will never come back? Zhao Yan was the legitimate son of Jia Shi, Jia Shidao's brother. They lived in the Rongwa mansion and were closer to each other than the cousins in the Ningwa mansion. Wang Shifeng was so scared that her face turned pale. Sir, don't say that. How would I dare to think like that? I and my wife pray day and night for second Master Bao to come back safely. Hearing her explanation, Song Qing-shu fell into deep thought. When he was on the Island of Heroes, he saw Jia Baoyu die at the hands of the mysterious man in black. However, because he pretended to be Jia Baoyu, no one knew about Jia Baoyu's death except for that mysterious man. However, Song Qing-shu had gotten rid of Jia Baoyu's body. That mysterious man must have been suspicious when he saw Jia Baoyu return to the Jiao mansion. Maybe he thought the one he killed was fake. Song Qing-shu had been thinking about who the mastermind was. After thinking about it, the most suspicious person should be someone from the Island of Heroes. After all, the crime happened on the Island of Heroes, so it was impossible for outsiders to get in. Among the people from the Isle of Heroes, the most suspicious were the people from the Jiao residence. Zhao Yan was the one who benefited the most from Jia Baoyu's death, so she had always been a suspect. Tonight, Wang Shifeng's probing had deepened his suspicions. Sir, please find the whereabouts of second Master Bao. My wife and I will reward you generously. Wang Shifeng looked at him with a pleading look. Song Qing-shu chuckled. Forgive me for being straightforward, but I'm afraid you and your wife can't offer me anything that interests me. Wang Shifeng bit her lip. If you can really find second Master Bao to prove our innocence, we can agree to any of your requests. Any requests? Song Qing-shu looked at her playfully. Feeling his gaze, Wang Shifeng blushed. She stuck out her full chest, bit her lip, and nodded. Anything. Please remember the domain name of this book. Come. Wonderful Book House mobile version. Come. Chapter 1983. Looking at the beautiful and flirtatious young married woman, Song Qing-shu could not help but sigh. No matter how forceful a woman was, in front of absolute power and influence, she could not be forceful or forceful. Of course, Song Qing-shu did not really want to do anything to her. Compared to her beauty, he was more interested in the Wang family behind her. Could he use this opportunity to break the close alliance between the Jia and Wang family? Song Qing-shu didn't say anything, but Wang Shifeng felt uneasy in her heart, especially when he looked at her. It made her feel like she wasn't wearing any clothes. It is not convenient for a concubine to stay here for long. I will have to trouble Mr. Wang Shifeng was worried that something would happen if she continued to stay here and quickly stood up to leave. If it was another time, Song Qing-shu might have had the mood to keep her and tease her, but there were 2 women in the room now. He clearly remembered the lesson of the 3 monks not having water to drink, so he naturally wouldn't keep her. Hearing Wang Shifeng leave, The two women came out from behind the screen. Qin Keqing looked towards the door. She left? Song Qing-shu waved his hand, and a gust of wind closed the door. I can't help but look. She has already gone far. The two women breathed a sigh of relief at the same time, but immediately realized the awkward situation in the room. Why is Andy here too? The corners of Qin Keqing's mouth curled into a smile. And he sounded very old, but actually their ages were not that different. It was all because Jia Zhu and Jia Baoyu's seniority was higher. Although her husband, Jia Rong, was even older than Jia Baoyu, he had to call him uncle. Li Wan blushed, but she was not satisfied with being in a defensive position. Isn't Keqing here too? Qin Keqing pursed her lips and smiled. I met Qi Wang by chance in the past. This time I came to see if it was him. Now that I have confirmed it is him, I will leave first. Finishing, she turned and walked out with a fragrant wind. Seeing this, Li Wan pulled her back. Hey, don't go. It was fine before, but now that she was seen by others, if she stayed alone with Song Qing-shu, it would be unavoidable for her to be in a bad situation. I still have things to do at home. Aunt, do you plan to come with me? Qin Keqing looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. Li Wan was somewhat hesitant. It must be known that it was not easy for her to meet with Song Qing-shu. She did not know when she would be able to meet him again. Firstly, the other party was always elusive. Secondly, as someone who lived in seclusion, it was naturally inconvenient for her to pay a visit to the Prince of Qi's residence. Ever since the early death of her husband, the young and widowed Gu Shijio had already lost interest in anything in the world, except for the news she heard from Song Qing-shu about her sister who had gone missing when she was young. Thinking of her parents, sighing and moaning all day long, Li Wan felt that she should do something for them. Seeing Li Wan's hesitation, Qin Keqing took out a handkerchief to wipe away the fine sweat on her forehead. Look at how Auntie is sweating from fright. I am not the kind of person who talks nonsense. Besides, I know your character. I know that you definitely have something to ask the Prince of Qi. A sweet fragrance assaulted Li Wan's nostrils. No wonder everyone in the residence said that young Mistress Rome was dissolute and graceful. With such a fragrant handkerchief, one look was enough to tell that she was a restless person. Ever since she began living alone, she rarely used cosmetics. Her other personal items were simple and elegant. She definitely did not have such a gaudy and rich item. It was just that she subconsciously disliked it. However, hearing Qin Keqing's words, she felt somewhat grateful. Many thanks for Keqing's understanding. I really do have something to ask the Prince of Qi. Qin Keqing returned the handkerchief to her sleeve. With a charming smile, she said, Then the two of you take your time to chat. I will not disturb the two of you. Finished speaking, she did not wait for the two of them to urge her stay. She floated away. As she left, she even considerately closed the door for the two of them. This action immediately caused Li Wan to blush. Song Qing-shu helped her out of this predicament, saying, The two of us are as clear as the moon. There is no need for foreign to take it to heart. Only then did Li Wan gradually calm down. In a gentle voice, she said, I hope that the Prince of Qi can inform me of my elder sister's whereabouts. Song Qing-shu nodded his head. This was what he had originally promised, so he couldn't go back on his word. Your sister's current name is Li Macho. She has a nickname in Jianghu, Scarlet Serpent Deity. Scarlet Serpent Fairy? Li Wan repeated the name twice and asked in confusion, Why is there such a strange nickname? Song Qing-shu explained, Fairy? Naturally, it's because your sister is just like Madam, with outstanding beauty. That's why people call her Fairy. Hearing his praise, Li Wan blushed and bit her lips subconsciously, not knowing how to respond. Seeing her shy and nervous look, Song Qing-shu suddenly thought of her identity. He couldn't help but sigh that he was used to having a glib tongue. He often said whatever came to his mind without checking if it was appropriate. Coughing lightly, Song Qing-shu continued. Qi Lian, on the other hand, refers to her vicious and merciless nature. When she first entered the martial world, she met a man with the surname Liu. After hearing the whole story, Li Wannan showed a trace of anger. That guy with the surname Liu is really a piece of trash. Heartless and fickle, a scumbag indeed. Song Qing-shu was a bit absent-minded for a moment, thinking that he must be a scumbag in many people's eyes. The only thing he could do was not to disappoint those beauties. But my sister's later actions were too extreme. Li Macho had caused a bloody storm in the martial world. Li Wan, who couldn't even bear to step on an ant, naturally found it hard to agree. Song Qing-shu also agreed with her view. Maybe she received too little love when she was young, causing her character to easily go to extremes. Li Wan sighed. It's all because my family didn't take good care of her, causing my sister to suffer so much just now. When I go back, I'll definitely ask my father to send someone to bring her back, so that she won't wander the martial world and be found by her enemies. She should be on the Blackwood Cliff in Pingding Province now. Ordinary people really can't go up there. I'll write you a letter. Song Qing-shu had arranged for Li Macho to stay in the Sun Moon sect. Although it wasn't the appointed time yet, how could he not let her family meet? Moreover, it was good to let her family's affection warm up her extreme character. Thank you so much, Your Highness. Li Wan bowed gracefully. Although she was the daughter of an official, she had heard of such a famous place as the Sun Moon sect's main altar. She knew that if it wasn't for the other party, even if her family knew where she was, they wouldn't have been able to get her. Song Qing-shu wrote a note in a flamboyant manner and handed it to her. When you see your sister, remember to tell her not to forget our previous agreement. When she's free, she still has to go back to the Blackwood Cliff. Li Wan took the note, somewhat surprised. Is Prince of Qi very familiar with my sister? Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. You can say that we're friends. Li Wan's expression became strange. Prince of Qi really knows people all over the world. Not only do you know my sister, but even the two young mistresses of the Jiao residence are familiar with you. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. I didn't expect Madam to also know how to make fun of me. However, there's something I said wrongly. I'm not familiar with the two young mistresses of the Jiao residence, but with the three of them. Madam, don't forget yourself. Li Wan suddenly felt her whole body heat up. She originally wanted to leave, but another impulse in her heart persuaded her to stay. I wonder how Prince of Qi got to know Feng Lotzi and Kiqing. Song Qing-shu was a little surprised. Usually, Li Wan was indifferent to everything. When she heard Song Qing-shu's joke, she would probably change her face and leave. Song Qing-shu didn't expect her to be so abnormal today. Please remember the domain name of this book. Com. Wonderful Book House mobile version website. Com. Chapter 1984. Song Qing-shu did not directly answer but said, I believe that Madam does not want others to know the scene of us meeting. There was nothing to hide about the scene of him meeting Wang Shifeng, but the scene of him meeting Qin Keqing could not be told to outsiders. Thinking of the other's seductiveness that night, Song Qing-shu suddenly felt disappointed. Sure enough, 3 monks had no water to drink. It would have been better if she had stayed. Li Wan understood and said apologetically, I asked too abruptly. Hearing him mention it, she could not help but think of the scene of Jia Rong barging into her room that night. If the other party had not saved her, her innocence would have been taken by Jia Rong. For some reason, her mind suddenly began to think of the scene of Jia Rong bullying her that night if Song Qing-shu had not appeared. Pei, why would I think of that disgusting thief? If I really had no other choice, I might as well. Li Wan suddenly raised her head and looked at the man not far away. His eyebrows were like swords, his lips were hot and dry, and his throat was slightly moving. What is Madam saying? Song Qing-shu looked at her strangely. He didn't know what she was muttering just now, and the way she looked at him was a little strange. Song Qing-shu knew himself. No matter how charming he was, it was impossible for this usually loyal widow to have that kind of thought. Therefore, he thought that his judgment was wrong. No, nothing. Li Wan suddenly woke up, and her tone suddenly became a little flustered. What on earth was she thinking in her mind? The more she thought about it, the more flustered she became. She hurriedly said, Thank you, Your Highness. I will go back first. Finishing, without waiting for the other party to respond, Li Wan turned around and left. But just as she took a step, she suddenly felt her feet soften and she involuntarily fell down. falling on flat ground? Song Qing-shu was confused, but he felt that Li Wan's personality was not the kind of person who would use such a method. His movements were very fast. Even though there were so many thoughts in his mind, he was still fast enough to support her. "Madam, be careful." Li Wan was shy and embarrassed. "Thank you, Wanya." As she spoke, she reached out to push him away and struggled to stand up. Song Qing-shu loosened his hand. Although he had some problems, he was not an impetuous person. Li Wan had lived in seclusion for many years, and her reputation for chastity was well known. He did not want to damage her reputation because of him. Li Wan walked a few steps and suddenly stopped. She bit her red lips tightly, and her usually fair skin was abnormally red. She didn't understand what was wrong with her. Why did some unbearable images keep appearing in her mind? At first, it was the wedding night with her husband, but after all these years, her husband's face had become a little blurry. Later, her husband's face suddenly turned into Song Qing-shu's. "Why are you thinking about all this nonsense?" "Li Wan, oh Li Wan, could it be that you've been a widow for so long that you can't resist your body's desire?" Li Wan could already feel the softness between her legs, and her pretty face was getting redder and redder. "Is Madam really all right? Do you want me to call someone to send you back?" Song Qing-shu always felt that the woman in front of him was a little strange. Her breathing was short and her face was flushed. Why was this situation somewhat familiar? But he quickly shook his head. How could this be possible? "No, don't." The heat surging in her body made her voice tremble. The only trace of reason she had told herself that if other people in the Fu saw the two of them together, especially in her current state, her reputation would probably be ruined. "Then let me help you out." Seeing that she seemed to be unable to stand, Song Qing-shu was worried that she would fall and went over to support her arm. Feeling his touch, Li Wan's body trembled, and she hurriedly shrank back. "No, no need. Can Wanya pour me a glass of water? I will be fine after a rest." "Okay." Seeing that she wanted to avoid contact with him, Song Qing-shu did not insist. He walked to the table and poured a glass of water for her. "But is Madam sick?" "Thank you." Looking at him gratefully, Li Wan took the water and drank a few mouthfuls. I don't know, it seems a little hot." As she spoke, she unbuttoned the outer robe, revealing the pure white lining inside. Her snow-white skin was faintly discernible. Song Qing-shu turned his head. In fact, the clothing of this era was very conservative. Even if she completely took off her outer robe, she was not as bold as those girls in the summer in his previous life. But after staying in this world for so many years, he had already gradually integrated into it. He subconsciously began to follow some of the etiquette of this world. "If Madam does not mind, can I take your pulse?" Song Qing-shu always felt that everything was not right, but in his mind he could not help but think of Li Wan's undergarments. He thought that her temperament was really plain and simple. Even her undergarments were of this style. And Li Wan sweetly snorted. She did not refuse and reached out her hand. Song Qing-shu's finger just touched her skin. He was shocked. Why is it so hot? At this time, he did not care so much. He turned his head and began to observe her eyes, breath, pulse, and so on. Finally, his face became more and more serious. Am I very sick?" Li Wan was shocked by her own voice as soon as she spoke. She never thought that she would speak in such a coquettish tone. Wasn't that what the vixen from the Ningwa mansion usually did? "You are not sick, but—" Song Qing-shu paused and smiled bitterly. But Madam's symptoms seemed to be caused by an aphrodisiac. At this moment, he was really F***ed. He couldn't understand what was going on. If it was Qin Kaching, he would accept it without hesitation and use his own body to detoxify the poison. But now, the person in front of him was Li Wan, who usually kept to herself. This was a bit difficult. Li Wan exclaimed. "But why am I poisoned?" Song Qing-shu thought for a moment and asked, "Did you come this time on your own, or did Jia Sherdao send you?" "Of course it was on my own." Li Wan blushed. She thought that her father-in-law would never allow a widowed daughter-in-law to go to another man's room in the middle of the night. Song Qing-shu was even more confused. He thought that it was all part of Jia Sherdao's plan. Although he was a bit surprised that Jia Sherdao was willing to spend so much, everything was reasonable. However, Li Wan denied it, and it was not a lie. Did you eat or drink anything during this time? Song Qing continued to ask. The only thing I drank was the water you just gave me, Li Wan answered in a low voice. Her calm eyes were now full of tears. That doesn't count. Song Qing was a bit speechless. Why doesn't it count? Li Wan bit her lips so hard that it seemed to be bleeding. Song Qing was annoyed. I only gave you the water after you started to show symptoms. Think again. Did anything strange happen just now? Li Wan felt very hot. She tucked the hair that was scattered on her cheeks behind her ears. I just saw a few young madams running into your room. Does that count? Of course not. Song Qing face darkened. How could she still be in the mood to joke at a time like this? There's really nothing else. I was so scared that I broke out in a cold sweat. I hid behind the screen with Kuching. After Feng Lotzi left, we came out. Kuching even wiped my sweat. But her handkerchief smelled really good. Li Wan's eyes became more and more blurred, and her voice became more and more unclear. Please remember this book's domain name. Com. Wonderful Book House mobile version website. Com. Chapter 1985. Handkerchief. Song Qingshu's heart was moved. Thinking about how Qin Keqing had wiped Li Wan's sweat before leaving, he had felt that it was a bit strange. In his mind, words like Lily kept popping up. However, thinking that this era should not be so open, he could only guess that the two women had a good relationship, resulting in such intimate actions. From the current situation, that handkerchief was most likely not simple. Just what is that smell? Song Qingshu asked. I also do not know. At this moment, Li Wan had already unknowingly taken off her coat. Her clothes were soaked with sweat, as if she had just climbed out of the water. Her entire body was hot, and a faint fragrance wafted from her body. When smelling it, Song Qingshu's nose, it increased the temptation. At this moment, when Li Wan smelled Song Qingshu's body, how could it not be the same? She had lived alone for a long time. Countless times, in the dead of night, she found it difficult to sleep. Occasionally, she would yearn for a man's masculine love. However, she had always been strict in her upbringing, and her personality was even more reserved. Once this kind of thought appeared, it would be extinguished by her reason. Unfortunately, how could the desires of human relationships be so easily controlled by reason? This was like controlling a flood. Although it could temporarily control the flow of the water, there would eventually be a day when it would completely erupt. Moreover, it would be even more violent than before. Of course, with the education that Li Wan had received since childhood, if there were no other opportunities, she would most likely be able to control it. However, this time, she did not know the origins of the aphrodisiac. Its effects were too violent, finally breaking through her heart's defenses. Prince Qi, Li Wan's entire body completely softened, collapsing in his Song Qingshu's embrace like cotton. At this moment, her heart was filled with desire. However, her husband had passed away not long after their marriage. Unlike other women, she did not understand the pleasures of the boudoir. In addition, she was naturally reserved. As a result, she only tightly hugged the man beside her. Only in this way could she feel exceptionally comfortable. As for what to do next, she seemed to have forgotten. In his embrace was a beautiful woman whose entire body was boiling hot. Because her clothes were soaked in sweat, holding her was practically no different from directly touching her skin. Song Qingshu could not help but feel somewhat parched, especially when he thought of her usually dignified and refined appearance. Now, he only needed to let nature take its course, and he would be able to obtain this pure and chaste beautiful widow. That kind of strong impact was something that almost no man in the world could endure. However, Song Qingshu had been through a lot and pushed her away with extraordinary willpower. "Madam, wake up." It was a pity that Li Wan had already lost her mind. Feeling that she had left something that made her comfortable, she did not know where she got the strength to hug him again. "This is killing me." Song Qingshu's entire body trembled. It would have been fine if she had only hugged him, but at this moment, her entire body was like a beautiful snake, constantly twisting in his arms, as if this could slightly alleviate the pain in her body. Song Qing-shu was a normal man. Naturally, he was stimulated by her. He knew that if this went on, even if Liu Xiaohui was still alive, his reputation would be ruined. He hurriedly said, "Madam, I am sorry." He immediately helped her to sit up, but her body was already weak at this time. Her whole body was as soft as cotton. In desperation, Song Qing-shu could only hold her in his arms from behind to fix her. Then his hands moved up and down, quickly hitting dozens of vital acupoints on her body. This was not the first time that Song Qing-shu had encountered such a thing. Naturally, he had already figured out a set of detoxification methods. While helping Li Wan to dredge the unbalanced yin and yang qi in her body, he was full of regrets. Why do I have to be proficient in yin and yang qi? Can't I use my body to detoxify her like those stories I read before? It's good for her and good for me. Of course, these thoughts could only be thought. Today, Song Qing-shu's vision and bearing were already different from ordinary people. Naturally, he disdained taking advantage of others. After being busy for more than half an hour, the agitation in Li Wan's body was finally calmed down. Noticing the other party's slightly trembling body, Song Qing-shu knew that she had woken up. He couldn't help but apologize. "Just now, Madam lost your mind. I couldn't ask Madam for permission first. I could only act first and report later. I hope Madam can forgive me." Li Wan was silent for a long time. Then she sighed faintly. "How can I blame you? It's my own immorality. I did such an immoral thing." As she spoke, she thought that everything that she had held on all these years was destroyed. She couldn't help but feel sad. She began to cry. Song Qing-shu said with a bitter smile, "Madam, nothing happened between us. Why do you blame yourself so much? It's not that I didn't have any consciousness just now. Prince Shi is naturally a gentleman." Li Wan bit her lip. "It's just that you and I are intimate, and our bodies are. Although we didn't really do the thing between husband and wife, what's the difference?" "There's a big difference." Song Qing-shu was speechless. He thought to himself, "What is this and what is this?" But in my heart, I have already done the wrong thing. I have let down my husband and shamed my family. The more Li Wan spoke, the sadder she became. She even wanted to die. In fact, Song Qing-shu also understood that she was born in the southern Song dynasty, a country where etiquette prevailed. She had received the orthodox education of a woman in the boudoir since she was a child. Although what they did just now was not a big deal in the future, in this world, it was indeed a hindrance to her innocence. Suddenly, an idea came to him. Song Qing-shu said with a smile, "Madam, do you really think there's no difference?" Li Wan said sadly, "Although it's not exactly the same, but it's almost the same. Since Madam thinks it's almost the same, why don't we continue what we were doing just now? Madam, you can completely take advantage of me this time. You should know that I've been restraining myself from just now." Song Qing-shu said with a smile. Li Wan was stunned at first. Then she said angrily, "This? How can this be?" Song Qing-shu laughed. "It seems that Madam still knows there's a big difference. Since it's like this, why do we have to be stuck in a dead knot like just now? If you don't say anything about what happened between us, if I don't say anything, who will know? Moreover, there is nothing going on between us." Li Wan was startled. Only now did she understand that he said those words to deliberately enlighten her. After this interruption, her heavy heart suddenly loosened. She couldn't help but sigh. "It's me who didn't know how to react. Thank you, Wang Ye, for your guidance." Suddenly, she felt something strange behind her waist. She subconsciously twisted her body. Then her small face suddenly turned red. She wasn't really an inexperienced girl, so how could she not understand what was going on? "Wang Ye, can you let go of concubine now?" Only then did Song Qing-shu realize that he was still holding her in his arms. He smiled embarrassedly. "Sorry, I was too preoccupied with talking to you just now." As he spoke, he let go of her and took a few steps back, putting some distance between them. However, Li Wan was very apologetic. "It's my fault. I've troubled Wang Ye." Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. His current situation was indeed a bit troublesome. Li Wan originally thought that her heart was as calm as still water. Who knew that her heart was beating so fast now? She didn't dare to stay in the room any longer. She hurriedly said, Wang Ye's great kindness will be engraved in my heart. Concubine will take her leave. Looking at her figure running out in a panic, Song Qingshu was very depressed. She should at least express that she would be a cow or a horse in her next life. What was the use of just engraving it in her heart? Li Wan opened the door in a panic. Suddenly, her whole body froze. Then, she couldn't help but tremble. She looked at the person at the door. Gong, gong. Thank you to riding a pig to watch a play. Singing Wall as the female lead. ELL 1450. Book friend 547233399. Time Flow, Xiaoyu Kriso V, and other book friend for their tips and support. Please remember this book's domain name. Com. Wonderful Book House mobile version website. Com. Chapter 1986. Song Qingshu was stunned. He had been so focused on Li Wan that he didn't notice someone was outside. He looked over and saw a middle-aged man with a dignified aura standing outside. It was none other than Jia Sherdao. Why are you here? Jia Sherdao was surprised to see Li Wan's face. Obviously, he hadn't expected to see her here. Jia Sherdao quickly glanced around the room. Seeing that there were no other women, he quickly regained his seriousness and snorted, Why are you here? Li Wan couldn't say anything. She was a widow in the middle of the night in a young man's bedroom, and she was sweating all over. Who would believe her if she said she was here just to ask about her sister? Jia Sherdao glanced at her and noticed that his daughter-in-law's hair was messy, her clothes were messy, and her pale face was flushed. Jia Sherdao's face immediately darkened. Song Qingshu couldn't bear to see Li Wan so embarrassed, so he smiled and broke the awkward atmosphere in the room. Prime Minister, why are you here so late at night? Jia Sherdao walked in slowly and said to Li Wan, Come in and close the door. Li Wan had always been a little afraid of this eunuch, and she felt guilty at this moment, so she didn't dare to oppose him. She closed the door and stood aside. Her fingers hidden in her sleeves kept twisting the belt of her dress. She was very nervous. Jia Sherdao looked at Song Qingshu and said, I treated my lord like an honored guest, but my lord bullied my daughter-in-law. That's not very nice. Li Wan hurriedly explained, Sir, we didn't— Shut up. You have no right to speak here. Jia Sherdao interrupted her and said coldly. Li Wan bit her lips and felt so wrong that she was about to cry. Song Qingshu frowned and said, Prime Minister, why are you so angry at the young lady? Oh, I didn't expect you to care about her so soon. I've heard that the king of Qi is surrounded by a group of women wherever he goes. You really live up to your reputation, Jia Sherdao said in a deep voice. He couldn't hide his anger. Song Qingshu shrugged. I can't help it. That's how charming I am. Li Wan was so anxious that she was about to cry. She thought to herself, why don't you explain the relationship between the two of us? Won't it make it more clear that there's something going on between the two of us? Jia Sherdao was surprised by his reaction. If what happened tonight spreads, I'm afraid King Qi's reputation will be ruined. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. In that case, wouldn't the Jia clan be humiliated as well? Jia Sherdao snorted and said, We're just victims, and the world won't blame us too much. But the Lord is different. He's young and promising, and he has a bright future ahead of him. He also has a good reputation in the south of the Yangtze River. I'm afraid he'll become a pervert that everyone will curse. Song Qingshu narrowed his eyes. Prime Minister Jia, are you threatening me? I wouldn't dare. I'm just telling the truth, Jia Sherdao said indifferently. Song Qingshu asked, What is Prime Minister Jia planning to do? I don't want to do anything. This is the end of it. You can go now. Jia Sherdao waved his hand, signaling him to leave. You're just going to let it go? Song Qingshu was startled. He didn't expect that he would raise it up high and then put it down gently in the end. However, he immediately realized that the other party didn't use this matter to threaten him. But this matter had always been in his hands, as if it was a weakness that could be used against him. In this way, no matter what he did in the future, he wouldn't do anything against Jia Sherdao. Song Qingshu didn't do anything. Even if he did, he wouldn't let Jia Sherdao pinch his nose like this. Prime Minister Jia, you weren't very smart tonight. Jia Sherdao frowned and said, I don't know what you're talking about. Song Qingshu thought quickly and quickly organized what had happened that night. First, Prime Minister Jia asked everyone in the house to drink with me, so that they could keep me in the backyard after they got me drunk. Then, they asked young Mistress Rong of the Ningwa house to come over. Young Mistress Rong is more beautiful than a flower, and she is naturally charming. I don't think many drunk men can resist her charm, not to mention that she had a powerful aphrodisiac with her. Ah, Li Wan exclaimed. She obviously thought of the towel that Qin Keqing had used to wipe her sweat. Song Qingshu gave her a comforting look and continued. Unfortunately, she didn't expect young Mistress Zhu to be in the room. In a moment of desperation, she had an idea and drugged young Mistress Zhu so that she could complete the task for her. If he hadn't experienced Qin Keqing's gentle trap as Wu Tianda, he wouldn't have known that young Mistress Rong, who was beautiful in the eyes of others, was actually a high-level social butterfly in Jia Sherdao's hands. She was used to seduce people at the most critical moment. Song Qingshu didn't look down on Qin Keqing because of this, especially when he thought of her background. Instead, he felt sorry for her. She had been set up since her mother's generation, and he didn't expect that she still couldn't escape her fate. Deep down, she must hate the people in the Jia house, so when she saw Li Wan, she asked her to replace him. She had always seduced Jia Sherdao, and this time, she would let Jia Sherdao have a taste of what it felt like to be seduced by his own daughter-in-law. Song Qingshu finally looked at Jia Sherdao and said, in the end, when he thought it was about time, Prime Minister Jia showed up at the right time to catch me in the act. Since then, he has firmly grasped my weakness. Unfortunately, Prime Minister Jia didn't expect that it was his eldest son's daughter-in-law in the room, so he accidentally exposed himself when he opened the door. Li Wan looked at her eunuch in disbelief and said, Really? Is that true? Jia Sherdao didn't pay attention to her. He only looked at Song Qingshu and said, King Qi is really imaginative. Song Qingshu smiled and said, Prime Minister Jia, we are all smart people. Do you really have to pretend to be ignorant? Jia Sherdao fell silent. After a long time, he said, As far as I know, although King Qi and Han Jiafu are close, they are not life-and-death friends. From now on, as long as we let go of the past, the Song family can absolutely be on the same level as Jia Sherdao and Wang Shui and become the fifth big family. Song Qingshu smiled and said, That sounds like a good suggestion. Jia Sherdao pointed at Li Wan and asked, What do you think of her, Your Highness? Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows and said, The young lady is chaste and indifferent, elegant and dignified. She is indeed a lady from a famous family. Hearing his praise, Li Wan bit her lip. She was a little happy, but at the same time, she was more afraid. After all, it wasn't a good thing to be praised by another man in front of her eunuch. It's rare that Your Highness has a good impression of her. Jia Sherdao nodded and said, One has had a hard time these years. She is still so young, and I don't want her to live like this for the rest of her life. Your Highness, you can come to the house to see her more often. Eunuch, Li Wan was very angry, and her little face was as red as rouge. Although Jia Sherdao's words were vague, everyone could understand that he was trying to match the two of them. No, it wasn't appropriate to say that they were a match. It was more like he was giving her to another man as a bargaining chip. Chapter 1987. Although Li Wan had a good impression of Song Qingshu, such a thing was against the principles she had held onto all these years. How could she accept the education she had received since she was a child? Jia Sherdao didn't respond to her. Obviously, in his eyes, Li Wan was a member of the Jia family and had no right to decide her own fate. Song Qingshu was a little surprised. Prime Minister Jia is really willing to pay a lot. It was no wonder that he sighed like that. Although Jia Sherdao had sent someone to seduce him, it was the young lady of the Ningwa mansion who had a different relationship with him. Now, he had sent his son's wife, which was surprising and shocking. My lord is not an ordinary person. This is the only way to show my sincerity. Jia Sherdao was a little angry that the person in the room had been changed. But on second thought, Li Wan was a widow now, and her family didn't have much power. It was useless to keep her in the house, so it was better to use her to do something else. Li Wan's heart sank when she heard that. She had worked so hard for the Jia family for so many years, but in the end, she would end up like this. Then wouldn't his previous persistence be a joke? She even thought of the time when Jia Rong broke into her room at night. If Song Qingshu hadn't saved her, the Jia family would have covered it up for the sake of the big picture. After all, Jia Rong was the only child of the Ningbo mansion, so he wouldn't be punished. At this time, Song Qingshu smiled and said, "Since you were so sincere, it would be ungrateful of me to refuse again. I will often come to your house to teach martial arts to the young masters and young ladies, and I will also visit the young lady." Hearing his words, Li Wan was so ashamed and angry that she wished there was a hole in the ground to hide in. She didn't dare to raise her head to look at him, but she didn't know why. But thinking about seeing him from time to time in the future, her cold heart gradually felt a trace of warmth. Jia Shidao didn't expect him to agree so quickly. He had thought that Li Wan would try to bargain with him. After all, although Li Wan's identity was special, she might be like his own daughter if he thought about it. She might not be a very tempting bargaining chip. He didn't expect Li Wan to agree so quickly, which made him a little confused. Song Qingshu cupped his hands and said, "I have disturbed you for a long time today. Now that I have sobered up, I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye." "All right, I'll send someone to escort Prince." Jia Shidao didn't stop him. First of all, he had achieved his goal. Second of all, he knew that if Song Qingshu really wanted to leave, no one in the world could stop him. "There's no need." Song Qingshu waved his hand and quickly disappeared into the dark night, leaving behind only a graceful silhouette. After he left, Li Wan felt more and more uncomfortable, but she didn't know what to say. Jia Shidao said, "Go back and rest. Don't think about anything else." "Yes." Li Wan bowed and tried her best not to let her tears fall. She was at a loss at this moment. Should she take some time to go back to her parents' home and tell her father about this? However, a married woman had to obey her husband. She had already married into the Jia family. What could her father do? However, she didn't know that the reason why she was so conflicted was that she liked Song Qingshu a lot. After what had happened, she liked him even more. So, although Jia Shidao's proposal was ridiculous, it wasn't that hard to accept. If Jia Shidao had proposed another man she hated, she wouldn't have hesitated at all. She would have fought with her life. After Li Wan left, Jia Shidao's confidant, Liao Yingzhong, walked in and said, "Prime Minister, I don't know what happened. Mistress Zhu got involved. I'll go find Mistress Rong and ask her." "No need." Jia Shidao waved his hand and said, "I think Kuching has a grudge against the Jia family, so she took the opportunity to get back at them. That's not necessary." Liao Yingzhong was shocked, so he proposed to teach Qin Kuching a lesson. "Forget it." Jia Shidao shook his head and said, "It's been so many years. It's normal for her to have a grudge. It's good to let her vent. Plus, one didn't really lose anything. I didn't expect this Song guy to be a gentleman." He had sharp eyes, so he could see that although Li Wan's clothes were messy, she hadn't really lost her virginity. Liao Yingzhong looked in the direction where Song Qingshu had disappeared and frowned. Song Qingshu agreed so quickly. "I feel like there's something wrong." Jia Shidao felt the same way. "I'm not sure either, but I didn't expect him to join us so easily. But the Wu-Tang clan's operation is imminent. If Song is involved, I'm afraid there will be changes," Liao Yingzhong said worriedly. "Why don't we organize some masters and find a chance to kill him first?" "Nonsense," Jia Shidao snorted. "Song Qingshu's kung fu is unfathomable. If we want to kill him, we have to use the power we prepared to use against Zhao Go. But wouldn't that expose everything? Besides, Song Qingshu's lightness skills are the best in the world. We might not be able to kill him even if we use that power. Prime Minister, you're so wise. I almost messed up the plan." Liao Yingzhong wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "But we can't rely on Mistress Zhu to stall him, can we?" Jia Shidao stroked his beard and looked at the moon outside the window. He said confidently, "Don't worry, I have another plan." When Song Qingshu returned to Prince Qi's mansion, Aku had just recovered from his serious injuries and had fallen asleep. Chen Yuanyuan had been waiting in the hall with Ren Yingying. When she saw Song Qingshu come in, Chen Yuanyuan stood up and smiled. He's back. Yingying, you should be relieved. Ren Yingying blushed. Sister Yuanyuan, weren't you worried too? Young master just saved Aku. He's our benefactor. It's normal for me to worry about him. Chen Yuanyuan had been through a lot, after all. She wasn't shy like a little girl. She said goodbye and went back to her room. After Chen Yuanyuan left, Ren Yingying came to Song Qingshu anxiously. She circled around him and looked him up and down. Brother Song, the Jias didn't do anything to you, did they? Don't worry. It's fine. Song Qingshu rubbed her hair. It's cold at night. You're not in good health. You should rest early. Ren Yingying looked at him bitterly. How can I rest if I don't see you come back safely? What happened at the Jia's mansion? Why are you so late? Let's go back to our room. Song Qingshu took her hand and walked into the room. There were too many people in the hall. It was hard to guarantee that someone with ulterior motives wouldn't spy on them. Back in the room, he quickly freshened up and put his arms around Ren Yingying to bed in the name of warming her body. Then he told her what had happened. He invited you to be a teacher? Jia Sherdao is trying to rope you in. Ren Yingying snuggled in his arms. She couldn't help but blink. But he probably doesn't think he can rope you in. Of course not. You can't imagine what happened next. Then Song Qingshu slowly told her what happened next. Ren Yingying suddenly asked, Is young Mistress Zhu very beautiful? Chapter 1988. Song Qingshu nodded subconsciously. Although her appearance is not as beautiful as you, Yingying, she is elegant and dignified. She has a special charm. Ren Yingying was a little annoyed, but when she heard that he didn't forget to praise her at this time, she couldn't help but laugh. If you praise her, just praise her. Why mention me? Is this what you call a strong desire to survive? Song Qingshu chuckled and whispered into her ear, That's because my Yingying is really beautiful. Ren Yingying's body suddenly trembled. She bit her lips and said, You were so anxious with other women that you came to find me. Song Qingshu said sternly, I am obviously the reincarnation of Lu Xiaohui. Even after experiencing that kind of temptation, I am still calm. Even if I am anxious, I still come back to find my wife. It's fine if you don't praise me, but why are you blaming me? Ren Yingying said softly, You always have so many fallacies. Song Qingshu hugged her soft body. My good Yingying, I am really going to explode. Please have pity on me. Ren Yingying was held in his arms and felt the special, masculine aura. Her eyes were a little watery. Only this time. Don't do it again. If you are aroused by other women in the future, don't come to me. Okay. Seeing her shy look, Song Qingshu couldn't bear it anymore. He directly turned over and got into the quilt. Oh, you are so annoying. Be gentle. The next morning, when Song Qingshu was still lingering in the land of tenderness, a maid came to report outside the door. Master, there's a guest outside asking to see you. She said no. Song Qingshu was a little annoyed that his mood was disturbed. He directly waved his hand impatiently. Yes. The maid was shocked. She rarely saw the master lose his temper like this. She hurriedly left. Why are you being so fierce all of a sudden? You scared me. Ren Yingying, who was lying under the blanket, looked at her lover with a reproachful expression. No one knew what Song Qingshu was busy with. His mouth was a little muffled as he said, The beauties of the 6 palaces are colorless. From now on, the emperor will not attend morning court. He is busy now. Even the heavenly emperor will not see him. Ren Yingying's eyes were sparkling as if water was about to drip out. You tormented me for so long last night, and when I woke up this morning, what if the person looking for you has something important to say? Nothing is more important than the current situation, Song Qingshu said gruffly. After an unknown period of time, a cold snort suddenly came from outside the door. Surnamed Song, you deliberately avoided meeting me. What do you mean? Song Qingshu poked his head out from under the blanket, wondering why it was her. Ren Yingying was so embarrassed that she gave him a kick, kicking him out of the blanket. It's all your fault. seeing that she was as shy as a quail, hiding under the covers and refusing to show her face again. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly as he got up and put on his clothes. After leaving the door, he saw a woman wearing a light yellow-green gown standing by the rockery outside the door. She was graceful and beautiful, but her usually pale cheeks were now filled with anger. So does Miss Yang. Before him was naturally the yellow-robed woman. Song Qing-shu waved his hand, indicating for the guards who had chased after her to withdraw. I dare not accept your praise. The Prince of Qi is truly arrogant, the yellow-robed woman said coldly. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. I didn't know it was you. If I knew that miss had come, I would have welcomed you with open arms. Why would I avoid meeting you? The yellow-robed woman sneered. Is that so? But the Prince of Qi has been back for so long, but I don't see him thinking of me. Song Qing-shu felt a little guilty. In fact, I have only been back for about 2 days. But you have done a lot of things, the yellow-robed woman said as she counted with her fingers. You broke into the palace to steal the imperial concubine, fought with my master, and visited Jusherdao's house. What do you mean by steal? That's receiving. Song Qing-shu was sweating profusely. He wasn't surprised that the yellow-robed woman knew about this. Her master was Huang Chong, and she had a high status, so she was naturally more well-informed than ordinary people. The yellow-robed woman snorted. Whether you snatch it or not has nothing to do with me. First young Master Song is a romantic and elegant man with beauties everywhere. I don't have the leisure to care about your romantic affairs. I came here this time to ask for your help. I don't know what it is, but as long as it is within my power, I will not hesitate. Song Qing-shu thought to himself, since you are asking for my help, why are you talking to me like this? The yellow-robed woman said lightly, don't agree so quickly. Otherwise, you will regret it later. Song Qing-shu said seriously, you have helped me a lot before, so I should return the favor. The yellow-robed woman's face softened a little. I just got the news that the leader of the Red Coat Army, Yang Aner, was killed by boatman Chu Chang on his way back to find his sworn brother, Xia Quan. What? Song Qing-shu was shocked. He remembered that he had seen Yang Aner not long ago. How is that possible? He is so powerful. How could he be killed by a boatman? He had seen Yang Aner fight with Xiao Zhao. Although Yang Aner's iron spear wasn't as good as Yang Yaoxin's, he was still one of the top masters in the Jianghu. How could he be killed so easily? That is the truth. The yellow-robed woman frowned. I heard that Chu Chang killed Yang Aner because he wanted a reward from the Jin Kingdom. Song Qing-shu was startled. The Jin Kingdom was his power. If Yang Aner was killed because of a Jin Kingdom, then it would be troublesome. Fortunately, the yellow-robed woman continued, but I don't think it is possible. Yang Aner had guards by his side. A mere boatman would not be able to kill him even if he had evil intentions. After Yang Aner's death, Xia Quan immediately sent troops to annex the Red Coat Army. I suspect that this was all part of his plot. The Red Coat Army was annexed? Song Qing-shu's shock was no less than hearing about Yang Aner's death. One must know that the Red Coat Army and the Golden Snake Camp used to be two powers. Although the Red Coat Army's power had declined in the past 2 years, it was still a force to be reckoned with. How could it be destroyed just like that? The yellow-robed woman shook her head and explained, actually, that is not accurate. After Yang Aner's death, the Red Coat Army under his command immediately fell into discord. Apart from Yang Aner, Yang Miaozhen had the highest prestige in the Red Coat Army. However, she was a woman after all. In addition, Yang Aner had a son who refused to accept Yang Miaozhen's succession and set up his own faction. Many of those who were loyal to Yang Aner followed him. In addition, another general under Yang Aner, Li Quan, also set up his own faction. This caused the Red Coat Army to split into 3 factions. In the previous war with the Jin Kingdom, the Red Coat Army had already suffered many losses. Now that they were split up, their strength was even weaker. Yang Yu's faction was quickly annexed by Xia Quan. What does this Xia Quan do? Song Qing-shu had heard of him a few times before. However, he had been paying attention to the matters of the imperial court and did not know much about the powers of the Green Forest. Chapter 1989. The yellow-robed woman slowly walked to the pavilion by the pond and sat down. She then said, "In fact, the Redcoat Army didn't just refer to Yang and and Yang Miaojian's troops. It was a collective name for all the volunteer armies in the Central Plains. During the Jinkong campaign, the Central Plains fell into the hands of the foreign tribes. Faced with the cruelty of the Jin people, the people organized many volunteer armies in response to the imperial court's northern expedition. These people wore redcoats and were collectively known as the Redcoat Army. Unfortunately, Lord Yu was killed unjustly, and the expedition to the north came to an end. The Revolutionary Army of the Central Plains was also suppressed by the Jin Kingdom. In the end, after a great wave of elimination, there were only 3 groups left: East City's Yang and Yang Miaojian siblings, Wei Province's Li Quan. Later, it was said that Li Quan had long heard of Yang Miaojian's beauty, and in order to pursue her, he and Yang emerged into one. The remaining group was Lu Erzu's branch. Xia Quan was a general under Lu Erzu. After Lu Erzu died in battle, he took over the branch. A fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's desire. This Li Quan is a wonderful man. Thinking of Yang Miaojian's unforgettable long legs, Song Qingshu understood Li Quan's actions very well. I'm talking about serious matters. The yellow-robed woman rolled her eyes at him. She was obviously dissatisfied with his strange focus. Xia Quan annexed the branch of Yang and Er's son. Li Quan's attitude is unclear now. Yang Miaojian only leads a few thousand remnant troops. They could be destroyed by Xia Quan at any time. Song Qingshu made a sound of surprise. Their fight is a matter of the Lulin people. Why are you so worried? The yellow-robed woman looked at him quietly. After a long time, she said, "Have you forgotten what my surname is?" Yang. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have understood something. That's right, Yang from the Yang family general. A hint of pride flashed across the yellow-robed woman's face. Obviously, she was more satisfied with this surname than her original surname, Zhao. Back then, I had a special identity and was fostered in the Yang mansion of Tianbua. Since the founding of the Song dynasty, the Yang family has always been a loyal family. Even now, even though we have declined, we still haven't forgotten to be loyal to the country. When the Central Plains fell into enemy hands, the old matriarch was heartbroken. She sent the only remaining descendants of the Yang family north to the Central Plains and set up a volunteer army behind the Jin Kingdom in response to the imperial court's plan to conquer the Central Plains. Unfortunately, the imperial court gave up the northern expedition, leaving the descendants of the Yang family alone outside. Song Qingshu was shocked. Yang and Yang Miao are really from the Tianbua Yang residence? That's right, the yellow-robed woman nodded. Now that Yang has been harmed by a scoundrel, only Miaojian is left. I must find a way to save her. Song Qingshu was originally full of admiration for the Yang family generals, and now hearing about the past, he was even more impressed. The Tianbua Yang mansion is indeed full of loyal people. So this time you invited me to save Yang Miaojian? Yes. At the same time, the yellow-robed woman looked at him expectantly. Song Qingshu said in a low voice, "You should have heard from your master that I will be going to Wudong Mountain next, and I am afraid that I will not be able to split up." The yellow-robed woman nodded. "I know, but with your martial arts, plus the power of the Golden Snake Battalion, it should not take you long to save Yang Miaojian, and then you will be able to rush to Wudong Mountain. I have already consulted my master about this matter, and he said that the Tianbua Yang mansion should not end up in such a state." Song Qingshu fell into a dilemma. His time was very tight, and the danger of the Western Xia dynasty in Mongolia was imminent, waiting for him to deal with the Southern Song dynasty. If he went and Yang Miaojian accidentally delayed, causing the situation in the Southern Song dynasty to get out of control, then it would be really, "Okay, I will go save her." Although reason told him that it was not wise to do so, he really could not be indifferent after hearing about the past of the Yang family generals. In many cases, making a decision could not simply consider the gains and losses. When he came to this world, he was able to work for Yu Fei, How could he sit back and watch the disaster of the Yang family? Thank you, Brother Song. The yellow-robed woman was overjoyed. She lifted the hem of her skirt and was about to bow. She did not have much hope, but now that he was moved, how could she not be surprised? She even changed the way she addressed him. Seeing that she was about to bow to him, Song Qingshu hurriedly helped her up and said in a deep voice, "The Yang family has never betrayed the country, and the people of the country will not betray the Yang family." Seeing his solemn expression, the yellow-robed woman thought that she had really misunderstood him. Although he was a bit greedy and lustful, he was really an impassioned hero in his bones for vindicating Lord Yu and saving the orphan of the Yang family. Wait a minute, I will first tell the people in the mansion, and then I will set off immediately, Song Qingshu said as he hurried back. Now, the yellow-robed woman was a little surprised. She thought that she would have to ask him several times, so she was not prepared. I am pressed for time, and I must seize every minute and second, Song Qingshu said quickly, and then returned to the room to tell Ren Yingying about it. Seeing him enter the room from a distance, the yellow-robed woman stamped her feet, wondering if she should go home and pack her luggage. She had not even brought her personal clothes. If she returned now, what would she do if he came out later and did not see her? Just as she was hesitating, she saw Song Qingshu walk out. She could not help but be surprised. "You have already told me so quickly?" Song Qingshu nodded his head. Yingying is a rare good woman in the world. How could she stop me in this kind of matter? As for Chun Yuanyuan and Ah Ku, although they were also somewhat reluctant, they did not have anything to say about this kind of matter. After selecting a few good horses from the mansion, Song Qingshu called for the yellow-robed woman to set off. After leaving the Prince of Qi's mansion, the yellow-robed woman hesitated for a while before finally saying, "Can you wait for me to return to the academy?" "Return for what?" Song Qingshu was startled. "I need to bring some luggage," the yellow-robed woman said somewhat embarrassedly. "What luggage do you need?" "I didn't bring anything." Song Qingshu spread out his hands, indicating that they were empty. "You are a man. How can it be the same?" the yellow-robed woman said angrily. Song Qingshu seemed to understand and laughed. "Oh, I remember now. You women can't wait to bathe 3 times a day, so you must bring a lot of personal clothes. There is no need to waste time going back. When the time comes, you can buy them on the road. This brother has money." The yellow-robed woman could not help but smile. "Your current tone is like a typical nouveau riche." "What's wrong with being nouveau riche? At least it proves that I have money." Song Qingshu did not mind. Suddenly, he looked at her with a strange expression. "However, there is one thing that needs to be said. Although this brother has money, I will not waste it. Every time you go out, you bring a large group of maids to play the flute and zither and scatter flower petals. I cannot afford it." Finished speaking, as if afraid of being beaten, he laughed and urged his horse to leave first. "You!" The yellow-robed woman's face reddened. Although she usually pretended to be indifferent, she was still a young girl. In addition, her martial arts were high and her status was high. In the past, it was inevitable that she liked to show off. Now that he had exposed her, she was somewhat embarrassed. Chapter 1990. The two rode north. On the way, Song Qingshu suddenly asked, "If the Redcoat Army and the Yang family have such a relationship, why did the imperial court do nothing? As far as I know, the Huaidong Commissioner Lu Gu is stationed in Chuzhou with 30,000 soldiers. Why is Xia Quan so fearless?" The yellow-shirt woman's eyes flashed with anger. "It's okay if you don't mention Lu Gu. I get angry when you mention him." "What's wrong?" Song Qingshu remembered that Yang Ener was also dissatisfied with Lu Gu. It all has to do with the conflict between Han Xianzhou and Jia Shidao. The yellow-shirt woman sighed and told him everything. Originally, Han Xingzhou wholeheartedly focused on the northern expedition and naturally valued the Central Plains Volunteer Army. He sent his trusted aide, Su Shiji, to be the Huaidong commanding officer to appease and rope in these volunteer army and even provided them with money, provisions, and weapons. But later, Han Xingzhou fell from power, and Su Shiji naturally could not continue in this position. Lu Gu of the Jia faction succeeded him. He changed his previous policy of appeasing the volunteer army. The emperor doesn't care. Song Qing-shu was confused. The yellow-shirt woman sneered. You know that our emperor is a surrender party. He is worried that the existence of the Red Coat Army will anger the Jin Kingdom and get him into trouble. Plus, there are many scum in the Red Coat Army. Some of the generals accepted money and supplies from the imperial court and secretly sold them to the enemy. The officials complained about this, and it became the straw that broke the camel's back, which made the emperor want to kill them. Song Qing-shu vaguely remembered that the Red Coat Army was an uprising in the beginning. But later on, some of the leaders changed. They started to control the army and try to gain support from the Jin Kingdom, the Song Dynasty, and the Mongols. They focused on expanding their power and didn't listen to the commands of the Song Dynasty. Of course, the reason for this was not only because of human greed, but also because of the various discriminatory policies of the Southern Song Dynasty. For example, the volunteer army was called the Northern Army. They didn't allow the Northern Army to enter the Southern Song Dynasty's territory and embezzled food and supplies. When the Northern Army and the Southern Army had a dispute, the officers would definitely side with the Southern Army. Plus, the Song Dynasty had always been wary of military generals. The yellow-robed woman spoke again. According to the analysis of our intelligence, Xia Quan's annexation of the Red Coat Army was most likely supported by this Lu Gu. Song Qing-shu, on the other hand, had a look of approval on his face. This Lu Gu's methods are quite clever. He made the two tigers fight each other and then reap the benefits. But now that we're involved, we naturally can't let him get what he wants. And the yellow-robed woman secretly clenched her fists, thinking that she must rescue the Yang family this time. The two of them traveled for several hours and finally rested in a small town. The yellow-robed woman said, "Wait for me at the tea house up ahead. I'll be right back." "Where are you going?" Song Qing-shu wondered. There was no mobile phone in this world. What if they got separated? He was pressed for time and could not afford to waste any time. The yellow-clothed woman blushed. "I'll be back soon." Song Qing-shu asked, "Go to the bathroom." "No." The yellow-robed woman spat. "Oh, then I'll go with you in case we get separated later." Song Qing-shu followed her. "I'm going to buy clothes." The yellow-robed woman could not help but roll her eyes at him. "Oh, then let's go together," Song Qing-shu said with a smile. When he saw her stuttering before, he thought it was something serious. As for his own clothes, he could just ask the waiter to buy them for him. He didn't need to choose them himself like a woman. "How can we go together?" The yellow-robed woman was extremely embarrassed. "Why can't we go together? Besides, I said I'll pay for you." In his previous world, accompanying a woman to buy clothes was a normal thing. Not to mention accompanying such a beautiful woman to go shopping. In the end, the yellow-robed woman could not change his mind. When they arrived at the clothing store, she could not help but complain, "If I didn't know that you don't care about etiquette, I would definitely think that you're a lecher. I'm not going in. I'm waiting for you at the door." "What kind of lecher is that?" Song Qing-shu naturally knew that in this era, the barriers between men and women were very obvious. A store that sold women's goods would not sell men's goods. Men would not set foot in such a place. In addition, clothing stores were different from the future. Most of the time, they only sold cloth or satin. Customers would buy them and make their own clothes. Of course, there were ready-made clothes, but they were relatively rare. The yellow-robed woman could not be bothered with him. She began to choose in the store. Now, there was no time to buy cloth to make clothes. Naturally, she could only buy ready-made clothes. When the boss saw a fairy-like girl with an outstanding temperament, he knew that a big customer had come. He hurriedly greeted her warmly. Song Qing-shu leaned against the door and felt a bit bored. He asked, "Oh, right. I finally know what the next line of the poem you told me last time means." The yellow-robed woman, who was choosing clothes, paused. A trace of red flashed across her cheeks. "What poem?" "The spring grass will be green next year." The next line is whether the prince's grandson returns or not. Song Qing-shu had a faint smile on his face. "I didn't expect you to be so eager for me to return." The room fell into silence. After a long time, the yellow-robed woman said, I don't remember telling you any poems. How could that be? At that time, we were seeing each other off in the palace. Song Qing-shu wanted to say more, but the yellow-robed woman had already quickly walked out with a bundle. I said there's no such thing. With that, she ran away without looking back. He was about to chase after her when he was pulled back by the store's boss. Hey, you haven't paid yet. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He could only throw a piece of silver to him. Keep the change. With that, he hurriedly chased after her. The store's boss took out a small scale and weighed the silver. After confirming it again and again, he couldn't help but curl his lips. Not much, not little. Just right. Don't even need the change. Pretending to be rich. Serves that fairy-like girl right for running away. Song Qing-shu naturally didn't know that the boss was ridiculing him behind his back. Right now, he was sitting in a restaurant, admiring the yellow-clothed girl's bright red cheeks up close. Normally, your skin is too pale, without any color. You look healthier like this. It's none of your business. The yellow-robed woman picked up the teacup to hide the panic in her heart. She secretly regretted that she had been possessed to leave him a poem. It was really embarrassing. Song Qing-shu held his chin and quietly looked at her profile. Her face was as white as the first snow. The soft lines seemed to be outlined by a stroke of a pen. Usually, she was indifferent and cold. It was rare to see her reveal a bashful appearance. It was truly pleasing to the eye. Have you seen enough? Feeling his gaze, the yellow-robed woman felt as if it was real. She suddenly felt uncomfortable. Of course not, Song Qing-shu said confidently. The ancient said that beauty is a feast for the eyes. I finally understand what kind of experience it is. The yellow-robed woman suddenly sighed. No wonder you have so many female friends around you. There really aren't many girls in the world who can resist your pestering. Song Qing-shu was startled. He smiled bitterly and said, In all honesty, I was clearly only thinking of you. Then what about now? The yellow-robed woman's clear as water eyes looked at him. Song Qing-shu suddenly fell into silence. He was aroused by her words. At this time, many people appeared in his mind. For example, he would pass by Yangzhou on his way north. He hesitated whether or not he should go see Zhou Zhuhua first. After all, the two of them had been separated for a long time. The yellow-robed woman also gradually calmed down. The poem I told you last time was only out of friendship. You don't need to think too much about it. Song Qing-shu knew that she was saying this to cut off the thread of love and deliberately alienate the relationship between the two of them. In fact, at this time, as long as he used some tricks and increased his favorability, it wasn't impossible to win her heart. But now he was entangled in love debts. There were many female friends that he couldn't see once or twice a year. Did he really have to go and harm new girls? I understand. Song Qing-shu put away his teasing thoughts and drank the wine in his cup in one gulp. Seeing his suddenly lonely appearance, the yellow-robed woman lightly bit her lips. For a moment, she couldn't bear to see him like this. Was she too heartless? At this time, there was a sudden noise from not far away. A group of people dressed like merchants came in and drank and chatted. Have you heard? There's a fight in Yangzhou soon. Yangzhou? Song Qing-shu suddenly turned his head. What was going on? Why didn't he receive any news? The yellow-robed woman was also shocked. She also looked in the direction of the noise. Isn't Yangzhou the prince of Qi's territory? Who dares to touch the emperor's territory? I heard that it's Xia Quan of the Redcoat Army. This Xia Quan is incredible. Ever since Yang and was killed, he suddenly rose to power and swallowed up most of Yang and Er's forces. Now he is the strongest branch of the Redcoat Army. Aren't the Golden Snake Army and the Redcoat Army on good terms? Why did they suddenly start fighting? I don't know about that. But isn't it normal for them to fight over territory? Yangzhou is a famous affluent place in the world. Who wouldn't be envious? I don't know if our great song can take advantage of this situation to return north and recover Yangzhou. Forget it. Don't you know what's going on in the imperial court? Shoo, be careful with your words. Hearing the discussions of those people, the yellow-robed woman looked worriedly at Song Qing-shu. Brother Song, Should we ask them about the specifics? Song Qingshu shook his head. No need. They are only passing merchants. Their knowledge is limited. Even if we ask them, we won't be able to get any concrete information. Then what should we do now? The yellow-robed woman asked. Let's go. Song Qingshu stood up and walked out. The yellow-robed woman hurriedly followed. Where are we going? The largest brothel in the city. The yellow-robed woman stayed outside the brothel. Who knew how many young masters had come to strike up a conversation with her? They all thought that she was a girl from the brothel. One after another, they all ran over and expressed that they would redeem her regardless of the price. This scoundrel. If I had known earlier, I would have gone in with him. The yellow-robed woman's face was frighteningly dark. Just now, Song Qingshu had walked straight in. She hesitated for a long time, but still decided to wait for him outside. As a lady, how could she go to this kind of place? However, she quickly regretted it. Standing in front of the brothel like this was even more eye-catching. After chasing away another lecher, she could only run to the opposite side and find a shady place to wait. She was extremely angry. This scoundrel, why did he come to this kind of place at this time? She wasn't an idiot. She didn't think that after hearing the news of Yangzhou being attacked, Song Qingshu would still have the mood to come to this kind of place to seek pleasure. Of course, even if he didn't hear the news of Yangzhou being attacked, with so many women by his side, he shouldn't have come to this kind of place. Moreover, he had her accompanying him. She didn't think that there was anyone in this brothel who had more charm than her. Bah, what are you all thinking about? The yellow-robed woman angrily stomped her feet. She continued to look towards the door of the brothel. Finally, she saw Song Qingshu come out. How is it? Is there any news? The yellow-robed woman walked forward and asked with some concern. Although she didn't know that Song Qingshu had specially built an information network of brothels in the Southern Song dynasty, with her intelligence, she could more or less guess that he went in to inquire about information. This kind of place was the place where the flow of information was the fastest. Song Qingshu nodded and explained, Xiaoquan has annexed Yongyu's branch of the Redcoat Army. His power has greatly increased. This morning, he suddenly began to mobilize his troops to attack Yangzhou. Is there anything happening in Yangzhou? The yellow-robed woman asked anxiously. Suddenly, her heart was startled. Why was she so nervous? Yangzhou had nothing to do with her. Could it be that she was nervous for him? Thinking of this, her heart madly jumped a few times. Yangzhou is a large city. How could it fall so easily? Song Qingshu's face revealed a worried expression. However, compared to Xiaoquan, I am more worried about Lu Gu's 30,000 troops in Chuzhou. The yellow-robed woman didn't understand. She said, Lu Gu dealing with the Redcoat Army is one thing, but right now, you're the Prince of Qi conferred by the Imperial Court. Could it be that he dares to risk universal condemnation and openly attack your territory? Wouldn't that be lightly starting a war? How could he bear this responsibility? Naturally, he wouldn't dare to openly attack Yangzhou. However, Song Qingshu snorted coldly. He can help Xiaoquan in secret. I have received information that not only did he secretly provide Xiaoquan with money, rations, and armor, he also had his troop station near Yangzhou. Nominally, it is to help Yangzhou. However, in reality, it is to obstruct Yangzhou's mobilization of troops. Moreover, because his troops are covetously watching from the side, Yangzhou's originally few troops will have to be divided to guard against him. This will cause the pressure of resisting Xiaoquan to increase. Previously, when they recovered Li Kashio's territory and influence, they obtained about 38,000 elite troops. Afterwards, Zhou Zhuo slowly expanded the recruitment. Their number was about 50 to 60,000. Because they followed Song Qingshu's policy of quality over quantity, the number of troops in Yangzhou was maintained at this number. A large portion of the troops had to be divided to defend the other prefectures. Currently, in Yangzhou, the field troops that Zhou Zhuo could mobilize were at most about 20 to 30,000. According to intelligence, Xiaoquan had about 40 to 50,000 troops under his command, while Lu Gu had 30,000. Although they might not be as elite as the troops under Yangzhou's command, the advantage in numbers was still quite obvious. But who gave him the courage? The yellow-shirt woman was very confused. Even if Lu Gu helped Xia Quan conquer Yangzhou, what good would it do him? When will he face the imperial court's interrogation and the Golden Snake Camp's revenge? Of course, it's our Pingzhong military minister, Master Jia. Song Qing-shu had been confused before. With Jia Shidao's shrewdness, why would he think of using a few women to tie him down? Now that he thought about it, it was just a way for him to numb himself. The main event was still in Yangzhou. That way, he could naturally lead him here. Naturally, he had no time to worry about Wudong's affairs. He always felt that 2,000 words per chapter was too little. In the future, he would gather the daily updates into one chapter. As for the word count, it was really hard to say. Let's leave it to fate. Chapter 1991. What a good move to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Song Qing-shu had to admit that this was not a conspiracy, but an open plan. Even if you knew his intentions, you had no choice but to jump into the trap. Why don't we go to Yangzhou first? Your name is known to the world. With you there, the morale of Yangzhou will be greatly boosted. Xia Quan and the others might retreat. The yellow-shirted woman suggested. Song Qing-shu shook his head. There's no such thing as guarding against a thief for 1,000 days. If we don't get rid of this hidden danger, they will use the same trick again in the future. I will have to leave with my nose pinched. But Xia Quan has many soldiers and food under his command. He also has Lu Gu as his backer. How can we get rid of him in a short time? The yellow-shirt woman did not doubt Song Qing-shu's ability. Whether it was breaking the Qing dynasty or killing Li Keqiu, he had displayed excellent military leadership. Xia Quan was definitely not his match. But the key problem was time. The emperor was about to go to Wudong Mountain. After Song Qing-shu killed Xia Quan, the flowers would probably wither. Xia Quan looks powerful now, but he's actually in danger. He only needs one fuse to completely collapse. Song Qing-shu paused and then said, "Let's go find Yang Miaozhen. Not going to Yangzhou. What if?" The yellow-shirt woman was worried. Song Qing-shu looked in the direction of Yangzhou and said lightly, "I believe in Jiruo's ability. She can definitely defend Yangzhou for me." At this time, in Yangzhou, a woman as elegant as a fairy was methodically dispatching troops. Her ice-cold appearance carried a dignified bearing. Her aura shocked the soldiers in the room. "Mistress, we are outnumbered. We should defend and wait for the 9th princess reinforcements. When the time comes, the enemy's encirclement will naturally collapse." A general stepped forward and said. The woman was naturally Zhou Zhuruo. She was clearly very satisfied with the other, calling her mistress. Xia Quan's army is just a motley crew. Right now, all the factions have just united and have not been completely absorbed. We need to take advantage of this time to attack them before they can stabilize their footing. As for Lu Gu, he clearly does not dare to openly attack Yangzhou. Before he can react, we must first defeat Xia Quan. Otherwise, when both sides surround us, although we can defend Yangzhou, the other prefectures and counties will be easily broken by them. During this period of time, Zhou Zhuruo had been very skillful in managing Yangzhou. She had already built up enough prestige. Everyone saw that what she said was indeed reasonable, so they no longer had any objections to her decision. Although Yangzhou's soldiers were few, they were all elites. Even if they were outnumbered, they still had the confidence to launch a surprise attack on a mere Xia Quan. As for Song Qing-shu and the yellow-robed woman, they were heading north. Fortunately, the yellow-robed woman had scouted for information beforehand and finally found Yang Miaozhen's group deep in the mountains. It was a pity that Yang Miaozhen was not in the headquarters. At first, her subordinates were tight-lipped, but after learning of Song Qing-shu's identity, her subordinates revealed a joyful expression and finally replied, "The fourth lady has arrived at Mount Machi." Flag polishing mountain? What's she doing there? Song Qing-shu didn't understand. Shouldn't Yang Miaozhen be thinking about revenge now? Why did she run to Mount Machi, which was completely unrelated? The subordinates sighed. The first master was killed, and the Red Coat army fell apart. Then, that dog Xia Quan took advantage of the situation and invaded. Now, the fourth lady only has a few thousand defeated soldiers under her command. In order not to be annexed by Xia Quan and to avenge the first master, she had no choice but to seek help from Li Quan. This trip to Mount Machi is to meet with Li Quan and agree to that bastard's conditions. Seeing him gnash his teeth, Song Qingshu doubtfully asked, "What conditions?" "Of course it's to marry him," the subordinate said hatefully. When Li Quan came to ally with the first master, I knew he didn't have any good intentions. Now that the first master's corpse hasn't even turned cold, he has already gathered troops to establish his own independence and use this to threaten the fourth lady. There weren't many women in the Red Coat Army, and there was only one who was as beautiful as Yang Yaojin. Thus, the entire army viewed her as a goddess. Now that they knew she had no choice but to give herself to another man, how could these people not be filled with righteous indignation? The yellow-robed girl was instantly enraged. Who does Li Quan think he is? How is he qualified to receive Sister Yang's favor? However, Song Qingshu felt that Li Quan's timing was very good. He took advantage of Yang Yaojin's desire for revenge, and at the same time threatened her when she was at her weakest. If there were no other changes, he would most likely be able to win the beauty's heart. After marrying her, he would then be able to take over the Yang siblings' former power. It was truly killing two birds with one stone. However, admiration was one thing, and agreement was another. Thinking of the few times he had fought with Yang Yaojin in the past, he did not want to see her end up like this. Moreover, there was also the relationship between the Tianbui Yang residents. "Let's go to Mount Machi. We must stop her from doing such a stupid thing." The yellow-robed girl had been raised in the Tianbui Yang residence and had deep feelings for the Yang family. Naturally, she did not want to see Yang Yaojin compromise and marry a man she did not love. "Can you stop her if you go to Mount Machi?" The fourth lady's power shakes the world, and she has her own thoughts and decisions. Since she has made such a decision, she must have considered the whole situation. She wants to use Li Quan's power to take revenge. If you stop her, can you take revenge for her? Xia Quan has tens of thousands of troops under his command. How can you take revenge for her? Song Qingshu said lightly. The yellow-robed girl's martial arts were very high in Jianghu, but martial arts masters were not very useful on the battlefield. There were enemies on all sides, and the movement and dodging skills that they had learned in their lives were meaningless. They were not as powerful as a group of strictly trained ordinary soldiers who worked together to cover each other. Of course, martial arts masters were not completely useless. They could be used as special forces, and when their martial arts reached the highest level, it was not impossible for them to take the head of a general in a crowd of 10,000. The yellow-robed girl also understood this, but she still could not accept it. But we can't just watch her jump into the fire pit. I didn't say we won't save her. It's just that we are not going to Mount Machi, but to East City, Song Qingshu said as he beckoned the yellow-robed girl to go on their way. "Why are we going to East City?" the yellow-robed girl asked in confusion. "To find Zhang Lin." "Hiya," Song Qingshu casually replied and urged his horse to run northeast. The yellow-robed girl was full of doubts and hurriedly chased after him. "Who is Zhang Lin?" "A general under Li Quan," Song Qingshu answered. "Why are you looking for him?" "You'll know when we get there." The two of them galloped, and after 2 hours, Song Qingshu suddenly stopped. "No, this is too slow." At this speed, when Yang Yaojin and Li Quan were at Mount Machi, what was done was done. What was the point of everything? This is already the fastest speed. Looking at the horse that was already panting, the yellow-robed girl could not help but feel pity for it. "Next, I will directly use Qinggong to rush to East City. You will go north from here to Mount Machi. Don't say too much, and don't stop them from getting married. But you must delay the entire process and keep Li Quan's energy there," Song Qingshu said. His current Qinggong speed had already surpassed that of a horse. Furthermore, a horse had to take a roundabout route to travel, but Qinggong could travel in a straight line as much as possible. Naturally, his speed was much faster. The reason why he still rode a horse most of the time was that it was too tiring to travel with Qinggong. Secondly, it was a problem of stamina. It should be known that riding a horse could bring a few more horses and recover the strength of the previous horse. However, it was not the same for humans. unless one's inner strength was endless, and the recovery was always greater than the inner strength used when running. It was destined that one would not be able to use Qigong to travel long distances. This was also the reason why many martial arts masters in Jianghu could sprint for dozens of miles, but would choose to ride a horse or take a boat for a journey of hundreds of miles. For example, when Xiao Feng mistakenly thought that Xiao Yuanshan was a great villain, he madly chased him for less than 30 miles before both parties came to a tacit understanding. As for when Zhou Badong chased Qiu Qianren for tens of thousands of miles from Jiangnan all the way to the western region, he was not rushing at high speed. Instead, he had sprinted for a certain distance, and both parties tacitly stopped to rest, eat, drink, and go to the bathroom before continuing on their journey. Therefore, although they had rushed for tens of thousands of miles, they had still spent a considerable amount of time. However, now that Song Qingshu's martial arts had reached a high level, his inner strength was endless. In addition, he was originally an expert in Qigong. As long as he did not use imminent skyline, a martial art that consumed a large amount of inner strength, he could theoretically continue to travel. However, there was a limit to a person's energy, and he would eventually tire out. It was just that in terms of rushing at high speed, he could already last much longer than other top experts. Although the yellow-robed girl boasted that her Qigong was very good, compared to the man in front of her, there was still a large gap. She knew that if she insisted on rushing with him, she would only become a burden. She could not always let him hug her and fly together. Could she? Thinking of that scene, the yellow-robed girl could not help but blush. What nonsense was she thinking about? What's wrong with you? Seeing that the yellow-robed girl was silent and revealed a strange expression, Song Qingshu could not help but ask. No, nothing. The yellow-robed girl's heart jumped, and she hurriedly said, Okay, I'll wait for you at Mount Polishing Flag. Song Qingshu was startled. Looking at her back, he thought to himself, why did he have a feeling that he was running away? However, since time was pressing, he also used his Qigong and began a hurry on his journey. The journey was as fast as lightning, and they finally arrived at Yi-Du at dawn the next day. As a general under Li Quan's command, Zhang Lin controlled nearly 3,000 people. However, he was born in the Lulin forest after all. The defense of his residence could not be compared to that of the imperial palace. Even the guards of many gangs in Jianghu were much tighter than his. With Song Qingshu's martial arts, it did not take much effort to sneak into Zhang Lin's bedroom. After all, Zhang Lin had lived a life of licking blood on the edge of a knife. In his sleep, he was alarmed and quickly opened his eyes. Who is it? Don't be nervous. I have no ill intentions. Song Qingshu poured a cup of tea on the table and drank it. He was exhausted from the journey. Zhang Lin subconsciously wanted to grab the knife next to his pillow. Song Qingshu casually flicked his finger as he drank the tea. The knife in Zhang Lin's hand flew to the wall. Seeing that the waste knife that was half stuck in the wall was still trembling, Zhang Lin subconsciously swallowed his saliva. If that flick from the other party had landed on his body, may I know your name? Zhang Lin did not shout for help. He knew that with the other party's martial arts, it would be a piece of cake to take his life. Song Qingshu drank a few cups of tea and felt comfortable all over. This time, he revealed his background. So, it is Prince Qi who has come. My apologies, my apologies. Zhang Lin thought that it was no wonder that he had such high martial arts at such a young age. May I know what business Prince Qi has with you? It is no big deal. I just want you to join the Golden Snake Battalion. What does General Zhang think? Song Qingshu leisurely asked. Zhang Lin was speechless. Was this not a big deal? He hurriedly replied, Prince Qi, General Li Quan has placed me in an important position. It is not good for me to switch sides. Important position? Song Qingshu looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. A few months ago, Li Quan's brother, Li Fu, used his brother's power to ask you for a few salt pans. You did not give them to him. He became angry and said that he would teach you a lesson sooner or later. Is this true? Zhang Lin's expression changed, and he fell into silence. Song Qingshu continued, Zhang Fu has no ability. He only relies on his brother's protection. He is very greedy and vulgar. He orders passing merchants to use the Leaf family's carriages and ships. At the same time, he has to pay half of the taxes. From time to time, he sends troops in disguise to rob merchant caravans. So, the merchants would rather take a detour through the Gene Kingdom or the Golden Snake Battalion's territory. Without merchants to rob, he has his eyes on the salt mines in your hands. Even if you ask him to extract salt, he is not satisfied and insists on the ownership of those mines. Am I right? Zhang Lin smiled bitterly. Prince Qi's intelligence network is really powerful. He even knows these things clearly. Song Qingshu smiled. It was impossible for him to barge into the north without a plan. Along the way, he had mobilized various intelligence networks and already had a clear understanding of the internal situation of the various forces. You are one of the strongest generals under Li Quan, but Zhang Fu actually dares to bully you. Is he really that bold? Is it really not Li Quan's intention? This time, Zhang Lin's expression really changed. At first, he only secretly cursed Li Quan for being vulgar. He did not think of this. Now that Song Qingshu reminded him, he suddenly realized that this might be... No, Li Quan was definitely slowly usurping his authority. It should be known that he was not a direct descendant of Li Quan. He was originally a local officer of the Gene Kingdom. At that time, when the Revolutionary Army rose, he took advantage of the situation and gathered a team to seek refuge with Li Quan. Because he was not a direct descendant, the two sides had always been in a state of harmony. This time, when he went to Mount Flag grinding to meet with Yang Yaozhen, he was not even brought along. Seeing his expression, Song Qingshu continued, "You and Li Fu have become enemies. Li Quan also views you as a thorn in his side. If you continue to stay in his hands, what do you think your fate will be?" Zhang Lin broke out in a cold sweat. He suddenly kowtowed to the ground. This subordinate is willing to seek refuge with the Golden Snake Battalion. I hope that Prince Qi will accept me. Song Qingshu was startled. He did not think that it would be so easy to persuade him. He originally had to put in a lot of effort. However, on second thought, in history, this fellow was also forced by Li Quan and his brother to seek refuge with the Mongols. Now that he had personally invited him, it was a wise move for him to seek refuge with him. Good. After joining the Golden Snake Battalion, you can keep your salt mines for yourself. I will also not have any designs on them. In the future, your stage will be very big. You will not be limited to this one mu of land like you are now. Song Qingshu helped him up. He still had to show the proper attitude. My lord is indeed not an ordinary person. Zhang Lin was overjoyed. He was originally worried that the other party would be like Zhang Fu and covet the salt mines. It should be known that in this era, salt mines and gold mines were no different. He did not expect that the other party did not even care about it. As expected, he was worthy of being a ruler of the world. How can this subordinate be of service to my lord? Zhang Lin hurriedly asked. He was eager to show his value by changing his allegiance. Now that Li Quan has brought his main force to Flag Grinding Mountain, you should take the opportunity to lead your men to attack his headquarters. At the same time, you should control the families of his soldiers. This was the purpose of Song Qingshu's visit. Zhang Lin was somewhat hesitant, but Li Quan has more than 10,000 men. If he returns, my men will not be a match. Song Qingshu indifferently said, with me around, he will not be able to return. Chapter 1992. On the Flag Grinding Mountain, in the tent of the commander of the Redcoat Army, a tall and slender lady was pacing back and forth. Even though she was dressed in military attire, her two straight, long legs attracted the gazes of most of the men in the tent. Li Quan, that brat, got lucky. The group of people swallowed their saliva and secretly cursed. However, they did not dare to say what they were thinking. It must be known that even though their female leader was as beautiful as a peach, her way of doing things was very fierce. If she was not fierce, she would not be able to control these generals. If she knew what they were thinking, she would definitely give them a good beating. Ing Luo, what plan do you have? Dragging things on like this is not a solution. Yang Yaozhen looked at the yellow-clothed lady and said, Sister, Just wait patiently. You will know in a while. The yellow-clothed lady was naturally the yellow-robed lady. She was rushing towards Flag Grinding Mountain. Because Yang Miaojin was leading the troops, her speed could not match up to her. Thus, even though the other party had left first, she was still able to catch up. After finding Yang Miaojin, she naturally followed Song Qingshu's instructions and delayed the marriage between her and Li Quan. Both of them were from the Yang family and knew each other before, so it was easier to communicate. Previously, you also said to wait for a while, but how long do we have to wait? Yang Miaojin was somewhat impatient. The other generals in the tent all shrunk their necks. This tigress, even though she was beautiful, she was still a tigress. She had just lost a brother, and the Red Coat Army had suffered heavy losses. During this period of time, it was as if she had eaten gunpowder. No one dared to provoke her at this time. The yellow-robed lady was in a difficult position. She did not know what Song Qingshu wanted to do, nor did she know when he would return. He only told her to wait. But facing Yang Miaojin's questioning, she needed an explanation. Helplessly, she could only say, waiting for someone. Waiting for who? Yang Miaojin asked. The yellow-robed woman looked at the other people in the tent with an awkward expression. Yang Miaojin waved her hand and said, "It doesn't matter. We're all on the same side." After going through so many hardships, those who were still willing to follow her were naturally trustworthy people. The yellow-robed lady then said, "Song Qingshu, Golden Snake King." Hearing this name, the tent was filled with gasps of surprise as everyone discussed. Yang Miaojin frowned. Golden Snake Camp is also involved? The yellow-robed woman hurriedly explained, "No, I privately asked him for help. Although he is a somewhat frivolous person, when he heard that you and your sister are descendants of the Yang family's generals, he volunteered to help." Delight appeared on the faces of the generals in the tent. With the help of the Golden Snake King, things will be much easier. That's right. With the Golden Snake King taking action, our problem is no longer a problem. Yang Miaojin, on the other hand, was much calmer than her subordinates. How can he help us now? We want to reform the Red Coat Army and take revenge for the First Master. Would he sacrifice the soldiers of the Golden Snake Camp for someone unrelated to him? Even if he is willing, what will the people under Golden Snake Camp think? What do you mean by irrelevant person? Isn't the fourth lady one of us if she marries him? Yeah, compared to the Golden Snake King, Li Quan is nothing. I've been annoyed with that brat for a long time. He even dared to take the opportunity to threaten me. She might as well marry the Golden Snake King than marry Li Quan. The yellow-robed woman was dumbfounded by the scene. What was going on? Could it be that Song Qingshu was going to replace Li Quan and marry Yang Miaojin? Thinking of this, she suddenly felt a little strange. Wasn't she rushing to send him into someone else's arms? Yang Miaojin's face alternated between green and red. Finally, she couldn't help but roar, "All of you, shut up. We're telling the truth. Since we're going to form an alliance, why don't we form an alliance with a stronger Golden Snake King instead of Li Quan?" The one who said this was Yang Einer's confidant, Li Siwen. Everyone privately gave him the nickname of Grand Preceptor. That's right, Miaojin. I also think that you should consider it. The Golden Snake King is better than Li Quan in every aspect. Moreover, Li Quan's adding insult to injury has made many of our brothers unhappy. Lu Quan, the uncle of the Yang siblings, said. Both of them were highly respected people in the army, so Yang Miaojin didn't dare to act rashly. She hastily explained, "I also know that Golden Snake King is better than Li Quan in all aspects, but he is too good. His Golden Snake Camp is too powerful now. What qualifications do we, a few thousand defeated soldiers, have to form an alliance with him? To put it bluntly, if I were to form an alliance with him by marriage, the Red Coat Army would become my dowry." Yang Miaojin paused for a moment before continuing. Although Li Quan is a bit despicable, he still has the Red Coat Army under him. Moreover, although his troops are stronger than ours, there is a limit to their strength. He is the one who is truly an equal alliance. In the future, I am confident that I can rely on my own abilities to become the true ruler of the Red Coat Army. If we form an alliance with Li Quan, even though the number of troops is still less than Xia Quan's, it will be enough for us to avenge our first master. War is never won by numbers alone. No one doubted Yang Miaozhen's words. Previously, the Red Coat army had suffered a crushing defeat, mainly because they had fought against the Jin army. Then, their first master was suddenly killed, causing the entire Red Coat army to fall into a state of disunity without a leader. That was why they were defeated by Xia Quan one by one. Now, as long as they could unite Li Quan's forces, it wouldn't be difficult for the Fourth Lady to defeat Xia Quan with her abilities. Seeing that everyone was silent, Yang Miaozhen added in her heart, "That man with the surname Song is a womanizer everywhere. I don't know how many women he has at home. I don't want to be jealous of his harem all day long." Fourth Lady, I can roughly understand what you're thinking. You mainly don't want the Red Coat army to be swallowed up by the Golden Snake camp. However, have you ever thought of a problem? Even if everything goes according to your wishes and you control Li Quan's forces and take revenge on Xia Quan, the Jin kingdom is growing stronger by the day. The Southern Song dynasty is unreliable and the Golden Snake camp is rising in the east. The space for us to survive is getting smaller and smaller. Sooner or later, we'll have to rely on one side. Otherwise, we won't be able to escape destruction in the end, Li Siwen suddenly said. Yang Miaozhen was stunned. She was not stupid and naturally knew that what he said made sense. The Central Plains today was no longer in the chaotic times when the Jin kingdom had just destroyed the Northern Song dynasty. The Red Coat army survival was getting more and more difficult. Li Siwen continued. During the Three Kingdoms period, Deng Ai Zhong's army was pressuring the border. Liu Chan of the Shu Han had the opportunity to escape to the east and even seek refuge with Dong Yuwu. However, why did he seek refuge with Chao Wei in the end? It was because they clearly saw that Wei was the strongest and Dong Yuwu would definitely be destroyed in the future. Instead of surrendering a second time, it was better to surrender once and have more bargaining power. Yang Miaozhen's expression was somewhat ugly. Although he was using the Three Kingdoms period as an example, he was also warning her that rather than being swallowed up by the Golden Snake camp in the future, it was better to take the initiative to form an alliance now. After all, in the future, she wouldn't have such a good bargaining chip as she did now. At this moment, her nephew Yang Yu also spoke. That's right, Aunt. As the saying goes, a woman cannot serve two husbands. Since she's going to marry, why not marry a stronger man? His forces have been swallowed up by Xia Quan. Fortunately, Yang Miaozhen saved his life. Shut up. Yang Miaozhen flew into a rage out of humiliation. If it wasn't for this little bastard's wild thoughts that caused the Red Coat army to split, how could Xia Quan have taken advantage of the situation? However, he was after all her eldest brother's only son and also the blood of the Yang family. Although she was angry, she couldn't do anything to him. Yang Yu was somewhat afraid of this aunt of his. After being glared at by her, he immediately shut up. Yang Miaozhen then continued. Even if you're going to surrender in the end, you should surrender to the imperial court. How can you surrender to a local force? There's no need to discuss this further. Otherwise, you'll be punished by military law. At this moment, a faint sigh suddenly came from outside the tent. If the imperial court was really willing to accept you, your eldest brother wouldn't have been killed, and the Red Coat army wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Who is it? Yang Miaozhen was immediately alarmed. In an instant, she grabbed the long spear beside her and thrust it towards the entrance of the tent. Just now, everyone was discussing the most confidential of secrets. How could she allow an outsider to listen in? Everyone could only see a brilliant spear light exploding in front of them. The yellow-robed girl was secretly amazed. No wonder there was a rumor that the pear blossom spear was invincible. This spear technique was truly exquisite. However, in the next moment, everyone's vision darkened. The spear light that was like a sky full of pear blossoms had already disappeared. Everyone looked over and discovered that the spearhead of Yang Miaozhen's spear had been caught in the hands of a man. They couldn't help but be shocked. In their hearts, Yang Miaozhen was the representative of invincibility. Such an indomitable spear had actually been caught so easily by a man's fingers. You used your spear to stab me the moment you met me. Is this how the Fourth Lady treats an old friend? The newcomer smiled. It's you? After recognizing the other party's identity, Yang Miaojin also gave up on spinning her spear to use the spiraling hidden energy. Big Brother Song. The yellow-robed girl also clearly saw the appearance of the newcomer. She secretly let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally arrived. Golden Snake King. There were many veterans of the Red Coat Army present. They had all seen Song Qingshu before. They all stood up and saluted him. Even if they hadn't seen him before, they had at least heard of his reputation. As the saying goes, a person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. The other party's status was far higher than theirs. Seeing that her subordinates were all so enthusiastic and respectful, Yang Miaojin couldn't help but feel angry. She thought to herself, I'm not dead yet. Why are all of you so eager to get close to me? Of course, she also knew that her anger was unreasonable. It was probably because these people had been trying to persuade her to marry Song Qingshu. In the end, she was about to see him in person. She didn't know how much he had heard. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't help but feel angry. Greetings, everyone. Song Qingshu greeted everyone one by one. Seeing that he was trying to get close to her subordinates, Yang Miaojin felt like she was being poached in front of her. She became even angrier. The world-famous Golden Snake King, eavesdropping as soon as you arrived. I'm afraid that's not very good. Everyone in the room was startled. They immediately felt the tense atmosphere. Song Qingshu didn't answer. He went to the main seat and picked up a cup of tea. He took a few sips and said, I've been rushing all the way here. I'm really tired. I'm going to drink some tea to catch my breath. Yang Miaojin was about to say that she had drunk from a teacup. Who knew that before she could say anything, the other party would drink from it? She had no choice but to shut her mouth. Thinking that the other party had come to help her, she couldn't blame him. But even so, her cheeks were inexplicably hot. The group of men in the tent looked at each other and kept exchanging their thoughts. Did I see it wrong? This tigress is actually blushing? TSK, TSK, TSK. This woman has always been a neat freak. No one dares to touch her things, let alone drink from the cup she has drunk from. But now she's not angry at all. It's strange. Just now, when we suggested her to marry Song Qingshu, she even scolded us. But now, TSK, TSK, TSK. Women are animals that say one thing but mean another. Is the fourth lady also a woman? Apart from being fierce, how is she not a woman? Is your wife as beautiful as her? Are your wife's legs as long as hers? F***CK, that's hurtful. Yang Miaojin noticed the strange looks in their eyes and couldn't help but say angrily, What are you guys looking at? No, nothing. The group of men hurriedly made up a joke. Song Qingshu poured a few cups of water and drank it before he recovered. Were we just now? Oh, I said you guys can't go back to the Southern Song dynasty. Yang Miaojin snorted. Why? She had a relationship with the Yang mansion of Tianbua, so it was not difficult for her to go south if she had no other choice. But this meant that the efforts of 2 generations of the Yang family in the Central Plains would all be in vain. If she went back with her tail between her legs, it would be a disgrace to the Yang family's ancestors. Didn't she tell you? Song Qingshu glanced at the yellow-robed woman and continued. This time, do you believe that the first master was killed by a random boatman? How could a boatman be capable of this? Yang Miaojin gritted her teeth. Although there is no direct evidence, we all know that this is Xia Quan's conspiracy. Xia Quan and his people have always minded their own business. Why did they suddenly attack you this time? Isn't it because of the instruction of Lu Gu, the Huaidong commissioner? Song Qingshu said. Do you have any evidence? Yang Miaojin didn't believe him easily. After all, she had the blood of the Yang family in her. She couldn't believe that the imperial court would do this to them. Song Qingshu told them about the fight between Jia Sherdao and Han Xingzhou, and then he continued, Su Shiji was the former Huaidong Control Commissioner, and he had always been nice to you. What's the attitude of Lu Gu, who took over the position, towards you? I don't believe that you can't feel it. Yang Miaojin was silent. All of this is just your guess. Really? Song Qingshu chuckled. If it weren't for Lu Gu, why would your first master ask for help from Xia Quan? I met him on his way there, and he promised the Golden Snake Battalion to support you guys with money and food. I wish you guys the best of luck." Yang Miaojin cupped her hands and said, "Golden Snake King Gao, we have received the money and rations that you sent last time, but it was snatched away by Xia Quan during the chaos of war." She glared at her nephew fiercely. It was all because of this prodigal son. Money is just a worldly possession. We can take it back if it's taken away. Song Qingshu didn't care. Now Xia Quan and Lu Gu are attacking Yangzhou together. Does the fourth lady know about it? What? Yang Miaojin suddenly stood up. She was hiding in the mountains now, so she wasn't as well informed as before. Now that she knew about it, she immediately understood everything. She had only guessed before, but now she was sure that Lu Gu was behind Xia Quan. Song Qingshu continued. As for the fourth lady saying that she could defeat Li Quan with her own ability and take control of his subordinates, I think it's too presumptuous. I don't believe that Li Quan didn't prepare for it. If you don't believe me, why don't we go to his camp and have a look? Yang Miaojin's expression changed. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Both of them were swift and decisive people. It wasn't easy to lead an army to launch a surprise attack in a military camp, but it wasn't difficult for a top martial artist to sneak in quietly. Especially since Li Quan wasn't a famous general on the battlefield, the defense of his subordinates was far inferior to a regular army. Yang Miaojin was confident in her martial arts, so she decided to go with him to find out the truth. Worried that the news would leak, she asked the yellow-robed woman to stay here and watch over this group of people, not allowing anyone to enter or leave. The two of them walked out of the tent and headed in the direction of another tent several li away. It was already late at night, and with the cover of the forest and their high martial arts skills, they were able to sneak in without alerting any of the guards along the way. It wasn't so easy outside the commander's tent. There were more than a dozen guards around. Yang Miaojin was in a bit of a dilemma. It wasn't difficult for her to deal with these guards with her pear blossom spear, but that would alert other people, and she would lose the purpose of gathering information. But if they were here and some distance away from the main tent, it would be difficult for her to hear what the people inside were saying. Just as she was in a dilemma, she saw a shadow flash by her side. Song Qingshu had already rushed out. His whole body turned into a shadow and swept past the dozen guards in an instant. Let's go. There's no problem now. In the blink of an eye, Song Qingshu had already returned to her side. Approaching the side of the tent, Yang Miaojin found that the acupoints of those guards had been sealed. They were standing still as if nothing had happened. She couldn't help but secretly click her tongue. His qing gong was really unpredictable. At this time, a burst of laughter came from inside the tent. "Big boss, that fourth lady has a great reputation in the army. She has always been very capable. Aren't you afraid that if you marry this tigress, she will make you a mere figurehead?" Yang Miaojin could tell that this was the voice of Li Quan's general, Lu Qingfu. Hearing him call her a tigress, a dangerous glint appeared in her eyes. No matter how powerful she is still a woman. When she becomes my woman, her subordinates will naturally accept their fate. Who would really follow a woman to conquer the world? Another slightly feminine voice sounded. Obviously, it was Li Quan's voice. A trace of anger flashed in Yang Miaojin's eyes. But she also knew that the other party was speaking the truth. As a woman, she was born with a great disadvantage. The soldiers subconsciously felt that it was more reliable to follow a man. However, she didn't build such a reputation for nothing. She had long been prepared for this trick. At this moment, another person's voice rang out in the room. But the fourth lady isn't stupid. Unless you've really avenged her brother and killed Xia Quan, why else would she agree to let you kiss her? The corner of Yang Miaojin's mouth rose slightly. She was somewhat proud. She was not stupid. She didn't want to be annexed by the Golden Snake Battalion. Naturally, she also didn't want to be annexed by Li Quan. She could first establish a marriage with Li Quan. But if she didn't grasp the real benefits, how could she agree to let him get close to her? She has already become my wife. This is not up to her to decide. Li Quan laughed. Big boss, it's not that we look down on you. Although your martial arts are very powerful, it is not comparable to the invincible pear blossom spear. If she is not willing, You'll be beaten badly if you want to get intimate with her. A group of people jeered. Yang Miaojin was secretly angry. She thought that this group of men always talked about despicable topics. They really deserved a beating. Since I dare to marry her, how could I not be prepared? Do you believe that I won't cook the rice tonight? Li Quan chuckled. Ow! Not to mention the group of subordinates. Even Yang Miaojin was confused. She thought to herself, if you want to use force, how could you be a match for me? At this time, Li Quan's brother Li Fu laughed. We have already bribed one of her subordinates. We put something in the tea she drank today. I guarantee that even if she is a virgin, she will become a slut. Li Quan also stood up. The effect of this medicine is slower than other medicines, but it is more powerful. It should be about time. I will go to her tent now. Don't let others take advantage of her. Big Boss is indeed wise. What a clever plan. With this, the Redcoat Army will completely become Big Boss's subordinates. The thousands of defeated soldiers are nothing. The main thing is the fourth lady. Her figure and long legs are definitely powerful. TSK, TSK, TSK. Big Boss is really lucky tonight. Outside the tent, Song Qing-shu was dumbfounded. Where did they put the medicine they were talking about? Tea? Don't tell me it's the pot I just drank. King drank a few big cups. Since QQ is being used less and less nowadays, you can add me if you want. In the future, we can set up a WeChat group to communicate and discuss. When you add me, please specify your nickname. Also, I have to say that there are no extras. Those who only want to add me will be disappointed. Chapter 1993. Glancing at Yang Miaojin, Song Qing-shu realized that she was also looking at him with a strange expression. Song Qing-shu was a little dazed. How many cups did I drink just now? Looks like I shouldn't casually drink anything in the future. Previously, I ran over to Zhang Lin's place because I was thirsty and drank directly from the teapot. If there was poison in it, wouldn't I be taking the blame? I can't rely on the fact that I'm immune to poison and let myself loose. Speaking of which, I don't know if my poison immunity can defend against this kind of poison. Boss is really far-sighted to actually plan everything. We really worried for nothing. More flattering voices could be heard from the tent. Li Quan was obviously very satisfied. Of course, I will definitely work hard on her so that she will get pregnant and give birth every year. How will she have the energy to compete with me in the future? Boss is wise. No matter how powerful she is still a woman. She is destined to be ridden by men. Li Quan's voice was getting closer and closer. It was obvious that he was about to walk out of the tent. Shameless person, Dai. Yang Miaojin had been suppressing her anger. Hearing this, she could no longer hold it in and rushed forward with her spear. Song Qing-shu couldn't hold her back. No wonder everyone calls you Tigress. You really have a fiery temper. Facing the sudden attack, Li Quan and the rest were shocked. Although Li Quan's martial arts were not as good as Yang Miaojin's, he was still a famous expert in the Redcoat Army. People called him Iron Spear Li. In the face of danger, he hastily pulled out his spear to block the attack. Unfortunately, he couldn't use his full strength in such a short time. When the two spears collided, he felt as if he was struck by lightning and quickly retreated. Yang Miaojin wanted to follow up with another attack, but Li Quan's subordinates had already reacted. In the Lulin forest, the strong were respected. To be able to reach the position of leader, other than Li Fu's nepotism, his other martial arts were not weak. With a group of people attacking, Yang Miaojin couldn't rush over. Li Quan got a chance to breathe, but did not join the battle. Instead, he called out, "Men, where did everyone go?" After all, this was the commander's tent. Although the surrounding guards had been restrained by Song Qing-shu, it was impossible for the people outside to not notice such a big commotion. Soon, there was a steady stream of soldiers rushing over. Yang Miaojin's heart sank. She knew that if she waited for his subordinates to arrive, she would be trapped here no matter how high her martial arts skills were. The long spear in her hand suddenly exploded into a series of spear sparks, injuring several people in the blink of an eye. Because she was angry at the filthy words of this group of people, Yang Miaojin did not show any mercy. Only Lu Qingfu, Gua Inyong, Zheng Yinda, and a few others with the highest level of martial arts were able to hold on. Seeing this, Li Quan was both shocked and angry. These people were all his subordinates. If a few of them were injured or killed here, then their strength would be greatly reduced when they fought against the outside world in the future. Fourth lady, have you gone crazy? Yang Miaojin said angrily. You know what kind of despicable and dirty person you have done. Li Quan also knew that most of their conversation had been heard, so he hurriedly said, Isn't it because I like you too much? What's more, we're about to become husband and wife. What's wrong with a little romance between husband and wife? Yang Miaojin was so angry that she laughed. Who wants to become husband and wife with you? Li Quan snorted coldly. Then who asked me to come to Mount Flag, grinding for a marriage alliance? If you don't become husband and wife with me, how can I help you get through this difficult time? If you don't become husband and wife with me, how are you going to seek revenge from Xia Quan? Hearing his words, the spear in Yang Miaojin's hand unknowingly slowed down. She was clearly hesitating. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Li Quan's face. Don't worry. As long as you marry me, I will naturally avenge my brother-in-law. Just as he was feeling pleased with himself, he suddenly felt a weight on his shoulder. He subconsciously turned around and saw a young man standing beside him. A hand seemed to be pressing down on him, but no matter how hard he struggled, he was unable to move at all. If Head Yang knew that you bullied his sister like this, I'm sure he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Song Qingshu lamented. Song Qingshu, as a high-ranking member of the Red Coat Army, Li Quan had naturally seen Song Qingshu before. Song Qingshu ignored him and directly shouted to the people in the field, All of you stop. His shout was mixed with inner force. Lu Qingfu and the others trembled, and seeing that their leader was being restrained, they could only stop. Surnamed Song, I and the Golden Snake Camp have always minded our own business. Why are you meddling in our business? Li Quan was shocked and angry. He was originally confident that he had the situation under control, but the appearance of the other party changed everything. Because I respect Head Yang's character, and because I am the fourth lady's friend. Song Qingshu replied indifferently. At this moment, Li Quan saw that his subordinates had surrounded him and immediately became confident. I was wondering why the Golden Snake King, who has so many affairs to attend to every day, would come to this poor and remote place. Turns out he's here to find a lover. Song Qingshu frowned, but before he could speak, Yang Miaojin was already angry. Surnamedly, what are you saying? Li Quan sneered. Am I wrong? Everyone in the pugilistic world knows about the Song Qingshu's romantic affairs, but I didn't expect you to be one of them. At the beginning, you clearly agreed to arrange for me to come here for a marriage alliance. But in the end, you went back on your words when the Song Qingshu came. No, could it be that you and the Song Qingshu had arranged to set me up here? However, Song Qingshu coldly snorted. Are you done yet? Since you're a captive, you should have the awareness of being a captive. However, Li Quan raised his head. I have tens of thousands of troops here. If you do anything to me, no matter how high your martial arts skills are, you will still be minced into meat paste by the thousands of troops. Tens of thousands of troops? Song Qingshu laughed. You have at most 10,000 subordinates. It would be good if you could bring a few thousand people to Mount Flag Grinding Mountain this time. Li Quan snorted. A few thousand is enough to kill you. At this time, Yang Miaojin also moved to Song Qingshu's side and whispered, Why don't we first use him as a hostage and leave this place? She had been on the battlefield for many years and naturally knew that no matter how high one's martial arts skills were, they could not defeat thousands of troops. Now that they were surrounded by Li Quan's troops, it would not be so easy to escape. However, Song Qingshu did not care. I can take the head of a general from an army of 10,000. A few thousand bandits are nothing. Li Quan was also an ambitious person. Seeing the situation, he shouted, Brothers, listen up. If anything happens to me, you will kill this adulterous couple and bury them with me. Yes, sir. Thousands of people roared in unison, their voices resounding through the forest. Only then did Li Quan say proudly, Let me go and we can all discuss this. After all, we have a common enemy. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. At the same time, he thought to himself, Yang Miaojin is one thing, but Song Qingshu will definitely eliminate him when he is alone. At that time, Golden Snake Camp will be like a group of dragons without a leader, and I can take the opportunity to annex Golden Snake Camp's territory. I heard that Song Qingshu's women are all as beautiful as fairies. I must experience them when the time comes. Yang Miaojin could not help but tug on Song Qingshu's sleeve. Why don't we let him go first? Song Qingshu looked at her unhappily. Women will be women. No matter how fierce they are usually, they're still indecisive at crucial moments. Do you think he will let us go if we let him go? Being reprimanded like this, Yang Miaojin could not help but feel a little angry, but she did not explode like she usually would. Instead, she explained, if we fight with Li Quan, the one who benefits in the end is Xia Quan, who said I want to fight with his subordinates. Won't we be able to annex his troops if we kill him? Song Qingshu said indifferently. Yang Miaojin cursed inwardly, thinking that it was not difficult to capture the leader first to capture the thief, but to kill the leader and then inherit his power was not easy. During the Three Kingdoms period, Dong Zhuo was killed, and his subordinates revolted, causing chaos in the world. Heir Zhurong of Northern Wei was killed by the emperor, and as a result, his subordinates revolted, and the emperor was beheaded. If only killing the leader could solve the problem, then everything in the world would be too simple. Li Quan was also so angry that he laughed instead. Who dares to kill me? Who dares to kill? Before he could finish, his eyes suddenly widened, and then he fell to the ground with a look of disbelief. Song Qingshu wiped his hands and said indifferently, You can learn from anyone, but you have to learn from Wei Yin? Yang Miaojin was dumbfounded. She was close and could naturally sense that Li Quan had already stopped breathing. She thought that if he was killed just like that, how would they solve the mess afterwards? One had to know that they were still surrounded by Li Quan's thousands of troops. In the past, when she heard all kinds of rumors about him, she had some admiration for him. But today, she saw that he was a completely impulsive person, which was really disappointing. However, the current situation was critical, and there was no time to think too much. Yang Miaojin grabbed his hand and quickly said, I see that the defense in the southeast seems to be a little weak. We should immediately break through from there. Who knew that when she tried to pull him, she would not be able to move him? Instead, Song Qingshu held onto her hand and made her stay where she was. Yang Miaojin sighed in her heart, thinking that they were dead for sure this time. She would just have to kill a few more later to break even. At this moment, Song Qingshu said in a clear voice, Li Quan harbored evil intentions. He colluded with Xia Quan to assassinate the Redcoat Army's leader Yang, and then forced the Fourth Lady to marry him. At the same time, he also spiked the Fourth Lady's tea with an aphrodisiac, attempting to use despicable methods to take her body. Is that even possible? Yang Miaojin's eyes widened. She naturally knew that it was true that Li Quan harbored evil intentions. However, to say that he colluded with Xia Quan to assassinate the leader was not very likely. The other party's words were obviously to slander them in order to fight for the righteous cause. The surrounding soldiers couldn't help but whisper among themselves. They were from the same origin as the Redcoat Army, and they had also served Yang and as their master for many years. When they heard that the leader's death might be related to Li Quan, they were all shocked. Nonsense, we obviously only spiked the tea. When did we harm the leader? Seeing that the crowd was starting to waver, Li Quan's brother, Li Fu, roared in exasperation. Idiot! Lu Qingfu cursed inwardly. As long as he did not admit to such a thing, he could completely say that Song Qingshu was slandering him. But now that he had admitted to one thing that Song Qingshu had said, didn't that increase the credibility of the other thing? Seeing the crowd's strange gazes, Li Fu also felt a little guilty. He hurriedly summoned his trusted subordinates and said, Everyone, let's attack together and avenge boss. As he spoke, he led his men and charged forward. Li Quan still had some trusted subordinates under him. Seeing this, they also charged forward. Yang Miaojin tightened her grip on her spear. Just as she was about to stop the other party, she suddenly saw a faintly discernible sword chi appear in a one-zhang radius around them. Just as those people charged over, their bodies exploded into a mist of blood, and then they softly fell to the ground. Song Qingshu didn't hold back. Firstly, Li Quan's trusted subordinates were destined to be difficult to subdue. Secondly, people like Li Fu, who robbed and killed passing merchants, deserved to die. Originally, many of the soldiers were eager to give it a try when they saw people charging forward. However, seeing that they were instantly killed, the scene immediately fell into a strange silence. 10,000 swords returned to origin. It wasn't known who shouted. Some of the people present had gone to watch the Golden Snake Conference and naturally saw Song Qingshu in action. The scene of tens of thousands of swords flying left an indelible impression on them. Song Qingshu took the opportunity to take a step forward. An incomparably abundant aura spread out in all directions, pressuring many people in the front row to keep retreating. Only kill the leader, let bygones be bygones. In the future, join the Golden Snake camp and follow me to eat and drink well. These were all Jianghu ruffians. They wouldn't understand any great principles, so he could only use the most straightforward words. The group of people looked at each other. In fact, many of them were tempted. The Golden Snake camp was now thriving. They were originally grass bandits, but now they were becoming more and more like a country. It would be a lie to say that they weren't envious. Who would want to be a grass bandit for the rest of their lives? However, everyone cared about their reputation. Now that the other party had single-handedly come in and killed their leader, they surrendered despite so many people surrounding him. It seemed that they couldn't bring themselves to lose face. While Yang Miaojin admired him, she was also incomparably nervous. On one hand, she didn't expect him to stabilize the situation in such a short time. On the other hand, she knew that this was only a temporary balance. If they weren't careful, they could easily explode. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion behind them. A group of people surrounded them. In the dark, they couldn't see how many people there were. Not long after, a general in bright clothes on a furious horse came in with the cavalry. Just as everyone was about to counterattack, they suddenly heard the other party shout, "E-City Zhonglin pays his respect to the king of Qi." Lu Fucking and the others' expressions changed. Zhonglin had actually pledged his allegiance to Song Qingshu. "How's it going?" Song Qingshu had been waiting for news from him. Zhonglin said loudly, "Fortunately, we didn't disappoint you. Now, our people have taken control of E-City, Linxiu, and Mi province." The generals and soldiers were instantly in an uproar. Lu Fucking and the others smiled bitterly. Their only thought of resistance was gone. The headquarters had been raided by them, and the families of the generals and soldiers were in their hands. How could they still fight? He was also sensible and quickly went forward to pay his respects. Lu Fucking pays his respects to the Lord. Several other generals followed suit. The National Security Bureau pays his respects to the Lord. Zheng Yinda pays his respects to the Lord. Tianxi pays his respects to the Lord. Since these big shots had surrendered, the soldiers naturally followed suit and knelt down to surrender. Greetings to the Lord. Yang Miaojin was dumbfounded. How could this work? She still had 7,000 or 8,000 people under her command. During this period of time, she had been troubled and troubled. In the end, he came alone and solved the problem with a few words and without using a single soldier. The key was that he had completely subdued Li Quan's forces. Why? Are you a little disappointed? Song Qingshu finished dealing with the matter of subduing and came to the riverside. Yang Miaojin's slender legs were particularly eye-catching, but at this time, her figure was a little lonely. "How can I be disappointed after solving a big problem?" Yang Miaojin said insincerely. "Why do you have to lie to me? You have wanted to annex Li Quan's forces for a long time, but in the end, I took the fruit," Song Qingshu said. "Those who are capable will take over. Moreover, if it weren't for you today..." Yang Miaojin paused, and her face suddenly became a little ruddy. "I'm afraid that what happened to me would be unimaginable." Hearing this, Song Qingshu nodded. "This Li Quan is really wretched. He actually used that kind of despicable drug on you. He felt that it was a little inappropriate to discuss this topic, so he changed the topic. By the way, you actually don't have to be depressed. I originally planned to give Li Quan's forces to you. To me? Yang Miaojin was a little surprised. Song Qingshu replied in a deep voice, Xia Quan is also my enemy. Now, he is in collusion with Lu Gu to attack Yangzhou. This be asterisk star dare to provoke you? Yang Miaojin was a little surprised, but at the same time, there was a little joy in her tone. So, I need to cooperate with the fourth lady to deal with Xia Quan together. As Song Qingshu spoke, his expression suddenly changed. By the way, how do you feel now? Is there anything wrong? What's wrong? Yang Miaojin was a little confused. Song Qingshu said hatefully, it was that bastard Li Quan who drugged you. Yang Miaojin said with some uncertainty, I don't seem to feel much. Could it be because I only drank a mouthful and the poison wasn't too deep? As she said this, she looked at him with a strange expression. It seems that you drank the rest. Song Qingshu's expression changed. Since you were drugged, the drug's effects should be targeted at women. It shouldn't be a big problem for a man to drink it. Then why is your face so red? Yang Miaojin subconsciously took a step back. I think I have a nosebleed. Chapter 1994. Is that so? Song Qingshu subconsciously touched his nose and saw that it was dark red. His expression suddenly became extremely strange. He had a nosebleed? Song Qingshu had many female friends around him. Thanks to his special cultivation method, he had not been sucked dry. How could he still be angry? But now he had a nosebleed in front of a woman. It was really embarrassing. Yang Miaojin looked like she wanted to laugh, but did not dare to. She asked, Are you having an effect of the drug? No, I'm immune to all poisons. Song Qingshu patted his chest loudly. I'll adjust my breathing first. Protect me. He said it casually, but in his heart, he was not confident. It should be known that Duan Yu was also immune to all poisons after swallowing the Mangaju toad. But in the end, he was still affected by the yin-yang harmony powder. Aphrodisiac was not a poison. It only magnified one's inner desires. Yang Miaojin saw his face getting redder and redder. White steam even began to rise from the top of his head. She could not help but say, Are you really okay? Do you need my help? No. Song Qingshu hurriedly waved his hand at her. Staying away from me would be the greatest help. What a joke. How could she help him with this kind of thing? Moreover, she was so seductive that it would easily aggravate the poison in him. Although Yang Miaojin was usually a little fierce, she had long legs and a slender waist. The more he looked at her, the more beautiful she became. Song Qingshu's heart trembled. What was he thinking? It seemed that the drug was indeed extraordinary. He hurriedly used his internal energy to balance the yin and yang qi in his body. It was not that he had never encountered such a thing before. His female friends were poisoned by this drug, and he used his internal energy to detoxify them. Yang Miaojin saw that Song Qingshu was concentrating on forcing the poison out of his body. She thought that the outside world had said that he was lustful, but today she saw with her own eyes that he was more gentlemanly than many other men. When she thought of how Li Quan, who used to be at her beck and call, had used such a dirty trick, she felt extremely unhappy. She even hated other men. Fortunately, Song Qingshu's behavior made her not disappointed in all men. After an hour, Song Qingshu opened his eyes helplessly. Now he finally understood why there was a saying in Jianghu, you can cure yourself, but don't cure yourself. Although he was proficient in yin and yang qi and was good at neutralizing this kind of poison for women, when it came to himself, using his true qi to neutralize it was like adding fuel to the fire. Is it impossible to force it out? Noticing his movements, Yang Miaojin asked. Song Qingshu nodded. I don't know what that bastard did, but the drug's effects are much stronger than before. I tried to dissolve it with my true qi, but the drug's effects and my true qi intertwined. It's really difficult. A trace of captivating red flashed across Yang Miaojin's face as she probed. I think you shouldn't force out the poison anymore. Your face is getting redder and redder. Why don't we go back and finding Luo first? Find her for what? Song Qing-shu didn't react for a moment. This kind of drug isn't poison. With a woman, yin and yang intercourse, it will naturally be neutralized. Yang Miaojin mingled with men all year round, so she didn't have as many misgivings as a normal woman. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. But there's nothing between me and Miss Yang. Yang Miaojin was startled, but soon realized that she had misunderstood their relationship. She couldn't help but laugh. Everyone says that the Golden Snake King has countless female confidants and is the best at taking people's chastity from 1,000 miles away. I didn't think that you would be able to resist the temptation of my fairy-like sister. The best at taking people's chastity from 1,000 miles away? Song Qing-shu's face was filled with black lines. Which bastard said that? Yang Miaojin's smile became even wider. Everyone in the world says that. Song Qing-shu was momentarily speechless. He also knew that he had done a lot of ridiculous things over the years, so he could only blame himself for this kind of reputation. Then what are you going to do now? Yang Miaojin asked as if she wanted the world to be in chaos. I'll take a cold bath and try it. Song Qing-shu said. This kind of medicine was not poison, so it wasn't that difficult to detoxify. After being stimulated by the cold water, he probably wouldn't want to take it anymore. After saying that, he took off his clothes and jumped directly into the river. Noticing that the other party was staring at him, Song Qing-shu was speechless. You're a woman. Can't you be a little more reserved? I'm not wearing any clothes right now. Are you going to just look at me like that? At that moment, he even had a feeling that the two of them were in the wrong positions. Yang Miaojin spat. I've been in the Revolutionary Army all these years. There are men everywhere, and they often take off their clothes. Haven't I seen enough? Although she said that, a strange bright red flashed across her face when she saw the other party's strong muscles. This bastard looks gentle with his clothes on, but I didn't expect him to have such a good figure when he takes off his clothes. Song Qing-shu was so choked by her that he couldn't speak. He simply sank directly to the bottom of the river, trying to let his skin come into contact with more cold water to calm the heat in his lower abdomen. Unfortunately, his internal energy was endless. When the cold water took away the heat on his skin, more heat immediately appeared in his dantian to make up for it, which made him feel more and more uncomfortable. Song Qing-shu finally felt a little panicked. He wondered if he would have to use the fifth young lady's left and right inter-fighting technique in the end. He had been surrounded by beautiful women all these years. Since when did he need to do it himself? The point was that even if he did it himself, with his current physical strength, he might not be able to solve it even if he was bald in the end. Hey, you won't drown, will you? Yang Miaojin's voice came faintly from the water. He could see that she kept pacing on the shore. Obviously, she was also a little flustered at the moment. I'm dying. Song Qing-shu emerged from the water and smiled bitterly. If he didn't solve his current situation, would there be any sequelae? The key was that he was in the middle of nowhere. Even if he wanted to find a brothel, he wouldn't be able to find it. I'll help you. Suddenly, a slightly shy voice came into his ears. Song Qing-shu was startled and looked back at Yang Miaojin on the shore. From this angle, her tall and invincible figure appeared more and more. Thinking of the beautiful scene when she used the pear blossom spear with her straight and slender legs, he felt that he was about to explode. He thought to himself, Madam, can you stop seducing me at this time? You're simply making it more difficult for me. Noticing his strange look, Yang Miaojin was a little angry. What are you looking at? Have you never seen a shy person before? Only then did Song Qing-shu notice that her face was much redder than usual at this time. Her usual fierce eyes had now become watery. What the hell? Song Qing-shu was a little dizzy. Could it be that after he was poisoned, he automatically added a beauty function to women? Seeing that he didn't reply, Yang Miaojin suddenly became a little annoyed. Do you want my help or not? How can I help you with this kind of thing? Song Qing-shu suddenly felt that his brain wasn't enough. Yang Miaojin's face turned slightly red, and she directly turned her head to the side. What am I best at? Spear skills? Song Qing-shu answered with some uncertainty. He didn't understand why she suddenly said this. Yang Miaozhen glanced at his lower abdomen. Then it's fine. Song Qingshu immediately broke out in a sweat. Madam, do you have to be so fierce? How could these two spears be the same? Yang Miaozhen snorted. This time, you helped me a lot. What's wrong with me returning the favor? Anyway, this kind of thing is not uncommon in the army. I don't need to learn it. I don't believe that it's harder to learn than my pear blossom spear. Can it be compared like this? Song Qingshu swallowed his saliva. He felt a little dry in his mouth. Was there really such a thing as a free lunch in the world? Don't be so fussy. If you don't want it, then forget it. Yang Miaozhen was a little annoyed. After saying that, she turned around and was about to leave. Yes, yes, Song Qingshu answered instinctively. However, he still felt that it was strange. Did the two of them get the wrong script? He had never seen such a fierce woman before. Yang Miaozhen's chest unconsciously rose and fell a few times. Clearly, her heart wasn't as calm as her tone. Let's go somewhere else. This place is too close to the camp. If someone sees us, I can't afford to lose that person. Song Qingshu's heart was thumping. He didn't know whether it was because of the poison or because of the other party's suggestion. The two of them ran along the river up the mountain. Their qigong was very good. Soon, they were far away from the crowd. Finally, they found a quiet cave. Yang Miaozhen stopped. Let's do it here. Do we really have to do that? Song Qingshu was a little uncertain. After all, everything that had happened was a little too magical. Are you still a man? Yang Miaozhen looked at him with disdain. Song Qingshu felt that he had been greatly insulted. He said angrily, You asked for this. Take it off. Yang Miaozhen snorted. The look in her eyes became a little strange. Song Qingshu was feeling really strange. Why did he feel like he was being teased by a female doctor in a hospital in his previous life? After a while, a teasing voice came from the cave. Hey, but is quite white. Song Qingshu directly ignored her words. He had a feeling that if this continued, he would become a little wife who was being trampled on. Although Yang Miaozhen had always been bold with her words, she was still a little shy when things came to this. She directly turned her head away and didn't dare to look. She only hesitantly and shakily reached out her hand. Noticing her expression, Song Qingshu finally let out a sigh of relief. He thought that this was a normal reaction. However, very soon, he couldn't laugh anymore. Not long after, he sucked in a breath of cold air. Hey, you can't really use it like the pear blossom spear. Do you know how to do it or not? At this time, Yang Miaozhen's face was red as if it was about to drip blood. Nonsense, I haven't done it before. At this time, Song Qingshu was in pain and happy. However, looking at his expression, it seemed that he was in more pain. Forget it, I will do it myself. I knew that you were unreliable. You said that I can't do it. Yang Miaozhen was angry. She directly sat in his arms. I don't believe that I can't really cure you today. Suddenly, Song Qingshu frowned. He looked at her moist eyes and said in a deep voice, Are you also poisoned? Yang Miaozhen rolled her eyes at him. Otherwise, do you think that I'm usually so bold? Song Qingshu's mouth opened wide. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Yang Miaozhen snorted. I thought that it would be fine if I only drank 1 or 2 mouthfuls, but it still acted up by the river. I also tried to circulate my energy, but it couldn't be suppressed. Feeling her youthful and plump thighs, Song Qingshu swallowed his saliva. Can you get up first? I can't help it. If you can't help it, then you can't help it. Why are you so conflicted? Yang Miaozhen looked at him quietly. Song Qingshu didn't understand what she meant for a moment. Yang Miaozhen sighed. You are poisoned, and I am also poisoned. You can't find anyone to detoxify it, and I can't find anyone to detoxify it. Since that's the case, let's make do with each other. This kind of thing can be made do. Song Qingshu was dumbfounded. Yang Miaozhen bit her red lips and glared at him fiercely. You keep making excuses. Are you still a man? No one was willing to admit defeat on this issue. Song Qingshu immediately became angry. Come on, who is afraid of who? Yang Miaozhen suddenly smiled sweetly. Her heroic eyebrows revealed a trace of a different kind of charm. Whether it is my subordinates or enemies, They all like to call me Tigress behind my back. But in private, they also call me Tigress. Do you know that? Song Qing-shu shook his head. He thought to himself, that's such a beautiful tigress. Please give me a dozen. They will secretly call me Rouge Horse. Everyone wants to ride this fierce Rouge Horse. But they can't beat me, so they can only suppress this idea in their hearts. Yang Miaojin put her hand around his neck. Her eyes were full of provocation. Do you want to ride? Song Qing-shu had been holding back for a long time. Hearing such words, he completely exploded. He roared and pounced on her. I want to be on top. I have only heard of people riding horses. How can there be a reason for a horse to ride a man? You have to beat me first. Damn, you're using Pear Blossom Spirit this time? If you want to be my man, how can you not have some ability? Boom, boom. Sounds of fighting came from the cave. Soon, a Pear Blossom Spear was sent flying and directly inserted into the side of the mountain wall. It was still trembling. However, Yang Miaojin's spear technique had reached the advanced realm. It did not necessarily need a spear to be used. For example, her pair of ridiculously long legs. After a while, the cave fell into silence. What kind of martial arts is this? Horse training. Annoying, the two of them were a young man and woman. Even if they were not poisoned, at this moment, their bodies were already intertwined. Moreover, the poison this time was so strong. The two of them did not say anything more. There was no need for words. They only needed the most primitive instinct. Everything was so natural. Yang Miaojin was different from other women. She was very passionate and took the initiative. She was really like an unruly Rouge Horse. She did not cater to him shyly and timidly. Instead, she was always fighting for the initiative in the war, always wanting to win this smokeless battle. Song Qing-shu was not prepared at the beginning. He was almost defeated by her. However, when he caught his breath, he gradually began to reverse the situation. No matter how valiant Yang Miaojin was, she was still a woman. Moreover, she was a young girl who had not experienced the ways of the world. How could she be a match for the experienced Song Qing-shu? Very soon, she was defeated. However, she had a tenacious personality. She displayed the spirit of fighting despite being defeated. It was unknown how many times she repeated these two words. Again, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.